Good evening and welcome to this evening's full meeting of Rother District Council. My name is Councillor Brian Drayson, Chair of the Council. This meeting is being held remotely and is being live streamed via YouTube. The recording of this meeting will be available afterwards on our website. All members and officers are reminded to put their mobile phones on silent if they have one near them, and to both switch off their cameras and mute their microphones when not speaking, as this will reduce any distractions, feedback and background noise. When called upon to speak, members and officers should turn on their cameras and unmute their microphones. Please be aware that there can be a time delay of around 5 seconds before the person wishes to speak appears on screen. The following members and officers only are asked to please leave their cameras on throughout the meeting. Councillor Oliver, Leader of the Council, Councillor Maynard, Leader of the Conservative Group, Councillor Dixon, Leader of the Lib Dem Green Group, Councillor Bayliss, Leader of the Labour Group, Councillor Harmer, Vice Chair, Mr Malcolm Johnston, Chief Executive, and myself as Chair. I hope that by doing this we will give the public viewing on YouTube a better experience. I will now ask the Democratic Services Manager to conduct a roll call to check that all members who are expected are present. When your name is called, please turn on your microphone and confirm you are connected. Thank you, Lisa.
Councillor John Barnes.
Present.
Councillor Mary Barnes.
Present.
Councillor Bayliss.
Present.
Councillor Bird.
Present.
Councillor Brewerton.
Present.
Councillor Brown.
Present.
Councillor Byrne.
Present.
Councillor Carroll. Councillor Carroll. Councillor Clark.
Present.
Councillor Coleman.
Present.
Councillor Mrs Cook.
Present.
Councillor Courtell.
Present.
Councillor Curtis.
Present.
Councillor Dixon.
Present.
Councillor Drayson.
Present.
Councillor Mrs Earl Williams.
Present.
Councillor Errington.
Present.
Councillor Field.
Present.
Councillor Ganley.
Present.
Councillor Gray.
Present.
Councillor Harmer.
Present.
Councillor Mrs Hart. Councillor Mrs Hart. Councillor Mrs Hart. Councillor Giawan.
Present.
Councillor Johnson.
Present.
Councillor Mrs Kirby Green.
Present.
Councillor Langlands.
Present.
Councillor Madeley.
Present.
Councillor Maynard.
Present.
Councillor Mear.
Present.
Councillor Mooney.
Present.
Councillor Norton.
Present.
Councillor Oliver.
Present.
Councillor Osborne.
Present.
Councillor Proshak.
Present.
Councillor Stevens.
Present.
Councillor Thomas.
Present.
Councillor Tempe.
Present.
Councillor Vinehall.
Present.
Thank you, Chairman.
You're muted, Chair.
You're still muted.
Still muted, Chairman.
Thank you. I said that list seems to get longer every time. Officers joining us this evening are Mr Malcolm Johnston, Chief Executive, Mr Robin Venard, Assistant Director Resources, and Mrs Lisa Cooper, Democratic Service Manager and Monitoring Officer. We also have with us Claire Fletcher and Chris Gander from our Digital Transformation team, who are looking after our technical issues and our YouTube broadcast. Lisa, can I ask you to allow Mr Drew in, please?
Yes, Chairman.
Thank you. We are also joined this evening by our guest speaker, Mr. Stuart Drew, Director and CEO of the Delaware Pavilion. Good evening, Mr. Drew. Any member wishing to speak should indicate this, please, by typing in the purpose for speaking, for example, question, object, nominate, etc., in the chat facility. Officers wishing to respond to members' questions, please type interject into the chat facility. The chat facility is persistent in that it cannot be deleted, and any inappropriate use would be deemed as a potential code of conduct matter. It is a requirement that all members will have read the paperwork published on the website. Members are reminded not to press leave meeting if you need to leave the room. Just remember to keep your cameras and microphones off. And so to agenda item 1. Seeking approval from the council to sign the minutes of the council meeting of the 21st of December as a correct record. If any members have any comments on the draft minutes, please indicate in the chat facility.
Happy to second, Councillor Drayson.
Yes. I'll come back to you, Councillor Projak, in a moment. As the minutes, I've had no comment in the chat facility about the minutes. Do I have your approval to sign at a later date that they are correct? That they are correct matter, record of the proceedings of the 21st of December.
So moved.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. I will take this as confirmation. I do not intend to take a roll call then.
No, but
Can I please remind members to mute their microphones? We can hear some off-screen comments at the moment. Thank you. Lisa, any apologies for absence?
None received, Chairman.
Thank you. Disclosures of interest. Are there any disclosures by members of personal and disclosable pecuniary interest in matters on the agenda? If so, please declare the nature of any such interest and whether members regard the personal interest as prejudicial under the terms of the Code of Conduct. Councillor Projak.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. I would like to declare a personal interest in CB 20/102 as a cabinet member. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Tempe.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd also like to declare for CB 120/102 as a member of planning and also of cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jonathan Vinehall.
And I would also like to declare on the same item, CB 20/102, as a member of the Cabinet and Chair of the Planning Committee.
Thank you. Councillor Cathy Harmer.
I'd like to declare an interest in item 8 as I've claimed a business grant. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Field.
Thank you. The same item as the other cabinet members, because I'm a cabinet member, it's not prejudicial.
Thank you. Councillor Terry Byrne.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to declare equally alongside my fellow cabinet members on 102. Non-prejudicial.
Yes. Thank you. Councillor Brewerton.
I would also like to declare, same as my colleagues, on item 102 as a member of cabinet, and on item 8 I received a discretionary grant just prior to Christmas.
Thank you. And I see Councillor Jonathan Vinehall, you've got a second declaration.
Yes, I should have done that before. Sorry, apologies. Also, item 8, as I have been the recipient of a discretionary grant. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Are there any further?
Councillor
Thank you. Members are reminded to reiterate their interest. I'm sorry?
Chairman, can I just say that number 8, my wife was in receipt of a discretionary grant for a holiday home, if that's necessary. Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Brown. Thank you. Members are reminded to reiterate their interest at the time the matter is discussed. Thank you. Agenda item 4, Chairman's communications. Colleagues, with just 2 months having passed since our last full council meeting, and all that time within lockdown 2, 2.5 or 3, depending on your point of view, there simply hasn't been the opportunity for me to visit anywhere, either in person or virtually, in my capacity as chair. Due to some personal commitments, I haven't been able to conduct any further virtual visits to Rother's parish or town councils, although like many of you, I suspect I was able to look in online at a certain parish council meeting in Cheshire East. I hope to continue visiting more of our local parish councils in the future, and I'm restarting early in March with a virtual visit to Dallington Parish Council. The big story over the last 2 months has, of course, been the COVID vaccination programme and the centres in Rother charged with its delivery. The Bexhill Primary Care Network, made up of 4 surgeries in the town, was able to start vaccinations at Sidley in late December, followed by Etchingham Village Hall, which covers 7 rural surgeries, and latterly Ticehurst Primary Pharmacy. The overwhelming feedback is that the staff and volunteers working at these centres across Rother have simply been amazing. They've been widely praised for their reassuring and efficient operations, all delivered with a friendly attitude. When it's safe to do so, I intend visiting the centres to thank them on our behalf in person for their fantastic work. But for now, it will have to be through this meeting. I'm unsure if any Rother residents are going across the border into Heathfield to be vaccinated, but I understand the centre there is also doing a wonderful job. I realise that it's not just the staff and volunteers at these centres who are making the programme work, and so we also need to thank the many volunteers who give up their time and their petrol to get people to and from them. I'd like to thank another group of people who've been working long and hard to support businesses, households and individuals across Rother since March 2020, and that is our own Rother District Council staff. I'll just say, those who know, know. So Mr Johnson, will you please pass on our thanks to everyone within Rother and those members of staff who work within our shared services for their hard work and their commitment. It would be remiss of me not to mention that last Wednesday, the Chief Executive and I signed the Community Governance Order, which marks the final step in the process of creating a council for Bexhill. It was a bit different from the hundreds of people filling Town Hall Square in May 1902 to watch the delivery of the Royal Charter. This time it was just Mr Johnson and I, watched by the Mayor of Bexhill, all of course socially distanced. Bexhill residents can now look forward to the elections in May and having a similar level of local representation to that afforded other Rother residents. Sadly, since our last meeting, another former member of this council has passed away, Keith Bridger, who served as a councillor representing Bexhill Sidley ward from 2003 to 2007, and had also been an East Sussex County Councillor from 1997, passed away on the 10th of January. Councillor Maynard wishes to record his personal tribute. Councillor Maynard, please.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. And again, it is very sad once again at the start of a meeting to be recording our sorrow at the passing of another former colleague. And Keith was a wonderful chap. He was a perfect gentleman, somebody who was a very cheerful a man of very cheerful disposition. Certainly across the political divide, I think we'd all agree that he put a lot into the local community, both at county, where he was the leader of the Labour group for some time, and certainly at Rother as well. He and his wife were a formidable team, and certainly our thoughts go to obviously Helen and the family at this obviously a difficult time. But he'll be very, very fondly remembered, as I say, across the political divide, and indeed, particularly to those that knew him as a local resident in and around Sidley. He was certainly an old school gentleman, and who's like, frankly, I don't think we'll see too many like that again. He was very much somebody who was a joy to work with, and I would count as a friend, because he was somebody that he fought his political corner, but it was always done in a very gentlemanly fashion. He cared passionately about, obviously, the things that he did care about, and he was a very good orator. But he'll be fondly remembered across the political spectrum. Thank you, Chairman.
You're muted.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Catherine Field.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I wanted to continue that theme because Keith and I were members of the County Council's cabinet, probably last century, actually, when we were in coalition. He was, as Councillor Maynard has said, unfailingly kind and polite, and incredibly effective because of that. He had a very quiet and determined way of getting things done, and I think we can all learn an awful lot from the way he conducted himself. I knew Helen, his wife, slightly as well, and would certainly like to send my personal condolences to her and the family, because I know, well, they were very close and very well respected in their community and in the larger Bexhill area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Field. Councillor Polly Gray.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I would just like to add a few words to this, because I had the pleasure of working with Keith Bridger back in the 1980s when I was a newly qualified social worker in Hastings. He was a probation officer, so I first knew him then, and I thought, what a kind man to be a probation officer. And then years later, when I was a guardian ad litem, he worked for CAFCAS, so we worked again together. And I just thought he was such a kind man. But I feel we should also mention his love of pantomime. He took part every year in the Sidley pantomime and played the Dame, and absolutely loved it. And he was a really good man. So I'm very sorry we've lost him.
Thank you, Councillor Gray. And one more. We have Councillor Christine Bayliss, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to say on behalf of my Labour colleagues and the Labour Party locally that we mourn the loss of Keith. He was a truly great representative of Sidley, he was Sidley man, and he was always kind, considerate, always ready for a chat and offer advice. So I'm very sorry to see him depart, and I would be grateful if you could pass on my condolences to Helen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bayliss. Members, for those of you who may not have seen in chat, Councillor Sally Ann Hart has managed to join us. She was tied up with another meeting. Good evening, Councillor Hart. That's surprising.
Good evening. Good evening. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Thank you. Now, members, in accordance with paragraph 3(2)(a) of the Council Procedure Rules, I will exercise my discretion as Chairman of the Council in favour of varying the order of business so that agenda item 11 is taken as the next item, which is an update from Stuart Drew, CEO of the... I missed Isma. I didn't see him coming in. Thank you. Didn't see him coming in. Thank you. Good evening, Councillor Carroll. So continuing, agenda item 11, update from Stuart Drew, CEO of the Delaware Pavilion. Good evening, Mr. Drew.
Good evening, Chairman. Good evening, everybody. I must say it's rather lovely to see you.
If you'd like to address the meeting, please.
Thank you. Yes, I was just saying it's really lovely to see all your faces. It feels so odd for the pavilion to be closed for such a long period of time, and I can't believe that we're here almost a year on. with this situation, and with the pavilion having only been open around 12 weeks last year. So thank you for inviting me, and I really just wanted to give you a very brief update really on where we are and what's going on. I guess it seems timely today where we've seen the Prime Minister's announcement and roadmap of coming out of lockdown. I know there's lots of conditions to that roadmap, but it seems on the face of it that we may be able to reopen from the middle of May, from the 17th of May, according to the paperwork. So although that's a little way off, it's really brilliant to start to be able to working towards a date. And also it seems that there is positive news on our ability to be running a live programme as well, potentially from the summer. I think the date is the 21st of June currently. I know things may shift around a little, but it means that at least we've got a strong autumn, if not a lively summer, if we can do that safely. So I think that's really brilliant news. I wanted to report back to you that the pavilion is doing well. The business model is stable. Thank you to Rother for your early support of the organisation last year, which has been followed by funding support from Arts Council England, but also by significant funding for some private trusts as well, which is very positive. And it means that we do have this stability and that we're in a reasonable place to restart the business when we're allowed, and to get the business back up and running. I guess it will be over the next few years to come back up to full capacity. But I think that's a really positive point to end on, really, that we can go forward. I also wanted to say a big thank you to members and patrons as well, and to the community. There's been a hell of a lot of support, and in fact we've seen the number of patrons and members go up in this period. I would say that I think a lot of that is really due to our box office team. You will have seen that we have spent a lot of time over the last year rescheduling live performances, and trying to protect the income from those live performances, both our own income and that income, those finances that belong to ticket holders too. So both our live team and our box office have been really brilliant there, and I'm very proud of them in giving excellent customer service. And as I say, we've seen that through donations and membership and patronage going forward. And as I say, I'm hoping that we can slowly restart that programme going forward over the next few months. I also wanted to say that there has been lots of programme running, various pieces of programme running. We've been running some really successful talks programme called Talking Loud for the creative industries, running in partnership with Town at Eastbourne. And so we're into that series now, and we're seeing very, very strong audiences. I think for the last talk last week, there was almost 300 people online attending those talks. And of course, that ties in very nicely with the work that we're also doing in partnership with Rother and Bexhill College in Beeching Road. So that very much supports that work that's going on. Our Young Creatives programme continues and has continued over the last year, supporting young people that have got a close association with the pavilion. We're about to start a new series of members talks in partnership with the museum that starts this week. A programme called Sound and Light, working with the University of Brighton. Various activities with the Refugee Buddy Project for Hastings, Rother and Wealdon, which indeed will culminate in an exhibition in the first floor gallery of patchwork that have been made during lockdown, and will be one of our reopening shows, which is really exciting. Forgive me if I go on a little, work with Audiotrope, supporting local grassroots music and local bands, working very closely with them. And then work both for families and for early years with online programs as well, such as Play Circle and Look, Think, Make, where we've seen strong views on our channels, on our digital channels. We're just gearing up now to work with something called the Great Big Art Exhibition, which is a national project working with artists such as Anthony Gormley and Anish Kapoor, Jeremy Deller, the British Museum, the Ashmoleum and the Tate, which is already live on our blog, on our website, but we'll be really giving that a kick to get some local participation as we go through these final stages of lockdown, and to really get people being creative. As I say, it's a national programme which we're really pleased to be part of. Just to move on to the building, it's been quite an interesting period for the building actually, and we've been really lucky to receive some funding from both Heritage Fund, National Lottery Heritage Fund and Historic England. We've been able to replace the cork floor in the cafe, which I can report looks much better, was pretty much worn out. We've also just completed this week the replacement of the boilers, which has been a significant job, but which is really good to do. They were reaching the end of their lives, so it's really good to take advantage of this period. Works are ongoing to the south staircase windows, and in fact Historic England have been on site today also doing some filming and documenting that. It won't cure it all, but it will replace some of those heavily broken panes and move us on a journey to getting that fully repaired. So it's good to see that. And lastly, we've continued to work with architects on a feasibility study for larger capital investment in the pavilion. This is something we've been doing over the last couple of years, but has continued in lockdown. And we've very much been concentrating on the auditorium, which hasn't been invested in since the 80s or the 90s. And also looking at some of the outside areas to be COVID secure. So that work is progressing, and we will be pushing forward and wanting to talk to Rother about that too as we move forward. And we are also just completing a whole scale review of our business plan. Of course, lots of things have shifted and changed during this period. So to make sure that we've got a new business model and a refreshed business plan going forward that will be ready early in the new financial year. Just finish off with a couple of other bits, just to mention tourism. I can't really take much credit, but I've been heavily supporting as chair my colleagues at 1066 Country. I must say they've done an amazing job in supporting the membership over the last year. And in fact, they too have seen membership rise over this period, and lots of people wanting to join that organisation. So a big thank you to Rother for their continued support of 1066. And I'm very pleased to report back that people have been internally grateful to the team for their support. I've also been working very hard on Sussex Modern, and we are seeing investment in Sussex Modern. Wealdon have just confirmed a 3-year commitment to Sussex Modern, as have Lewis have put in some investment, and we've just received some money from CELEP as well, the first tranche of money from CELEP. So very much looking at dispersal of visitors across the region, looking at higher spending visitors, and being able to effectively market the region during this time of lockdown as well. So that's very exciting, and we're just about to recruit a member of staff for Sussex Modern as well. So that's very good. Just to finish off, I just wanted to quickly talk about vaccinations and testing. I know that there's been a few conversations on social media about the pavilion with regard to vaccination centres, etc. I just wanted to be very clear that we have been talking to the NHS right throughout this period, and the pavilion has always been available as a vaccination or a testing centre throughout this period. That those NHS leaders have decided to deliver vaccinations and testing in other ways, so they decided to use other sites. But just to be clear, that is their decision, and the pavilion's always been available. I think it's really important to say that, and continues to be. We have some logistical issues over live programme and the way that live programme is contracted. So although sometimes it looks like there isn't anything going on, there's obviously quite a big financial liability with the live programme. So to say that we've been keen to protect that, but otherwise the pavilion's been available for its public duty during this period. Thank you. I hand back to you, Chairman, and happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Drew. Just before the questions come, I'll call on Councillor Oliver, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to move that Council Procedure Rules 14.4, content and length of speeches, and 14.5, where a member may speak again, be waived for the discussion of this item.
Thank you. And is that seconded, please? Councillor Prochak, I think. Yes, I've seen your comment. Thank you. Any objections to waiving those rules? If you have an objection, please show it in chat now. Thank you. In the absence of any objection, then I'll take this as confirmation. I do not intend to hold a roll call vote on this matter. And the first is Councillor Prochak, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair, and good evening, Stuart. I just wanted to say, because Councillor Tempe and I are both trustees of the Delaware, is that a facility, a place like the Delaware, and all the sort of arts and culture sectors, I think of many sectors, they've been hit really, really badly because it totally relies on footfall. We had a talk last night. We have a local arts partnership in Robertsbridge, and there were 2 Robertsbridge residents who are lead members of the orchestra at Royal Opera House, and they were saying 20% of Royal Opera House had lost their jobs. So that's the kind of climate that we were faced with when we had lockdown. And, you know, if you look at the importance to the UK economy, in something, I think it was 2018, arts and culture was worth over 28 million in turnover. And certainly the Delaware is worth such a lot to us in ways we perhaps can't measure. And I'd just like to say to Stuart and to everybody is that when we faced this, we were meeting every week as trustee board members. And I can't tell you how Stuart has led his team there at the Delaware with such positive ways of, he never actually gave in, and you're always looking for a way through, a way to do it, a way to keep going, a way to keep delivering. And he says about offering the Delaware for vaccinations, but I think he also offered the Delaware for food banks. So the community works so hard in the community. I was delighted when he lit up the Delaware for the NHS. It was driving in that dark seafront. It was a beacon of hope with those lights there. And I'd like to congratulate him on his leadership. Because the team is splendid, but he leads them with this very positive way of getting through things, making things better, finding ways through. So I just want to congratulate you publicly. Thank you.
Thank you. If I may just, Chair, can I just briefly respond? Do you mind? I just wanted to return the thanks to Councillors Prochak and Timpey. The board have also been incredible, and from meeting almost on a weekly basis to continuing to meet on a monthly basis has been amazing. And we've had some really incredible I just remind you that our chairman is Julian Bird, who's the chief exec of Society of London Theatres. So we've had some really brilliant, he's been advising government on performances going forward through this situation. And also Steve Williams, who sits on the, has chaired the trust, the NHS trust at Moorfields Eye Hospital as well. So we've had some really good NHS intelligence too. So I just wanted to pay tribute to the board. They've been incredible and very supportive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Drew. Councillor Polly Gray, please.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Stuart. It's good to hear you speaking so positively about the Delaware. And thank you, Sue, for putting it all into words for us. Stuart, just a quick question. I was interested to hear you say you've replaced the boilers. And I just wondered what kind of boilers do you have replaced them with? Because, you know, gas boilers are being phased out. But obviously, air source pumps are very expensive. So I'd just be interested to hear.
I'm afraid in the circumstances they have been replaced like for like. However, I'm really pleased to report that you know, we are working on the auditorium and we will be looking at environmental systems as we go forward with that project. So that's very much part of the wider capital project. But unfortunately, we didn't quite have the resources or indeed the time. We were really in danger of the boilers failing. So we were slightly under pressure, but absolutely we are very, very keen to be aligned with Rother's priorities on the environmental challenges. So as we go forward, we'll be responding to that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Christine Bayliss.
Thank you, Chair. Well, as one of the councillors for Bexhill Central, I think I couldn't be more prouder to have the Delaware Pavilion in my ward. It's a fantastic asset. I've got photographs of myself sitting on the terrace in my pushchair with my parents. So I've known it a very, very long time, and it never fails to take my breath away as a building of real beauty. You know, as I say, a real asset to the town. I just wanted to personally thank you, Stuart, for all the help that you gave the Bexhill Family Collective when we put on the two fundraising gigs with Eddie Izzard in the summer. We managed to conduct, I think, what were some of the first socially distanced comedy shows at the pavilion. We raised a really fantastic amount of money for the Bexhill Family Collective, and I know most of that was actually down to you, Stuart. Thank you for that. So thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Councillor. Did you want to say something, Stuart, or I'll go on to Councillor Oliver?
Well, again, thank you. I really just wanted to pay tribute to Eddie Izzard, really. I think Eddie was really, really key to supporting us last summer. I was incredibly proud to be running live events in the region. We also ran some live events in Eastbourne as well when there was nothing else going on, and doing it in a COVID secure and safe way. You know, just to contribute, you know, to pay tribute to Eddie's commitment both to us and to the museum. I think he kind of comes in and does things by stealth, but they're actually really, really important to Bexhill.
Thank you, Stuart. Councillor Doug Oliver, please.
Thank you, Chairman. And it's nice to see you, Stuart. I know we caught up some months ago with Sue and Malcolm, and we were chatting through the plans that you have. I find it amazing that you keep coming up with these a whole range of unique events, and the way that you spread the Delaware is just spreading itself, not just from the auditorium and what goes on there, but so many other areas. I've said it before, and I will just repeat it again. I think we're all very, very fortunate to have a really safe pair of hands in your skills of managing this asset there, which for the whole of Rother, it really is a gem that we want to protect and look after and go forward. I really wish you well, and thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. It looks like I have one more at the moment, which is Councillor Ashan Jiawan, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Stuart, for the update. I just wanted to say thank you for clarifying the situation with regards to the DLWP and its status with the vaccine. I think that clarification will certainly go a long way to putting some of the miscommunication that has been circulating online and on social media regarding the fact that the Pavilion and the PCN network could have done more. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm really I must say I saw a few comments a few weeks ago, but hadn't realised that it had blown back up again, or there was more comments. And you know, we could make a very brief comment from the Pavilion as well, public comment. I actually spent quite a lot of time with some of the senior team at the NHS over Christmas, really trying to work with them and to make it work at the Pavilion. I know that they decided to move forward with other options, but you know, just really I think it's really important. You know, it's such a big asset and public civic space that, you know, of course it goes without saying.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's the end of your interrogation, Mr. Drew. Thank you very much, Stuart. Thank you for coming along to us tonight. Thank you for your presentation, and I look forward to not having events scheduled for a fourth time.
Let's see if we can do our best and actually get some events to happen when they should do. But thanks again for the opportunity, and I do really hope we can get open again soon and safely, and all move forward. So thank you for your support.
Thank you. Good night, Mr. Drew. Thank you, members. Item number 5. Can we admit Mr. Brown, please, Lisa? Sorry. If we
Chairman, unfortunately, he's not waiting in the lobby presently, so I've sent him a link a couple of times, but he's not actually present waiting to come in. So I don't know if you want to...
Well, I know he's been there very patiently. I left him once by mistake. We'll come back to this item when he reappears. It's not as if he wasn't trying. Thank you. So on to item agenda 6, to answer questions from members of the council. There are none. Agenda item 7. To receive a report of the Cabinet on matters for dissemination by full council at its meeting held on the 8th of February 2021. There were no recommendations made at its meeting on the 11th of January. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to move that, with the exception of minutes CB 20/98, draft revenue budget proposals 2021-22, that shall be taken as agenda item 9, the report of the meeting held on the 8th of February 2021 be approved and adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. I see that's been seconded by Councillor Suprochak.
Second, Chair.
Yes, thank you. Right, I will now call over the reports. I just want to address Councillor Barnes, because Councillor John Barnes.
If I understood Councillor Oliver correctly, Chairman, he was only going to call 2098. Can I indicate, therefore, that I would want to call also the capital strategy, CB 2100. I also would wish to call CB 2101, and I believe somebody may wish to call CB 2102, all of which were on the 8th of February.
That is correct, Chairman. I have typed in the chat that I was calling in CB 2102.
Yes. I'm just dealing first of all with Councillor Barnes, because very early on he implied that he wanted to call over CB 2098, and I was just going to point out that that's an entirely separate agenda item. It's agenda item 9, but I have taken notes that he wants to that he wants to call over 100, 101 and 102. But in fact, Councillor Bayliss, well, let's go through the order, but 98 is a separate agenda item. Thank you. So,
Chairman.
Yes?
Chairman, with great respect, what one doesn't want to do, and this is why I really want to debate it under Cabinet, is I don't want to prejudice the rate setting, which is actually in paragraph 9. There are issues other than the rate setting that I want to raise.
Thank you. Lisa, can I have some advice on that? Can we not discuss that as part of the agenda item 9?
Chairman, we've always taken the minute arising from Cabinet on the draft revenue budget with the actual budget report, which is a separate item on the agenda. We don't normally take any other discussion because the whole point of that item is to agree the revenue budget. But perhaps the Chief Exec might want to clarify that.
No, Chairman, if I may, that my understanding is that agenda item 9 will discuss the budget 21-22.
Thank you. Councillor Barnes, when we come to agenda item 9, if you need a bit of leeway, I'll see if I can give you it to address what the issue you wanted. But for this agenda item, we're calling over CB 2099, the Treasury Management Strategy. I don't see anyone for 99. CB 2100, the Capital Strategy 21-22 to 25-26. That's Councillor John Barnes has called that over. CB 2101, development of a local lottery to support community funding. That has also been called over by Councillor John Barnes. And CB 2102, the Town Hall redevelopment proposal, was called in by, there's a whole rush of people now, was called in by Councillor Christine Bayliss, first of all. So you got 2, Councillor Barnes, and Councillor Bayliss got, no, you got 3, Councillor Bayliss got 1, thank you. Right, I move that the whole of the report, with the exception of the reserved minutes, be approved and adopted. Lisa Cooper, please.
Thank you, members. Just to confirm then that this is the vote for the minutes not reserved for discussion, so that's CB 2099. Correct, Chairman?
Yes.
So please, I'll read out your names and please answer for, against or abstain. Councillor Barnes.
For.
Councillor Mary Barnes. Councillor Mary Barnes. Councillor Bayliss.
She said 4, but I'm not sure we were unmuted.
Sorry, can I hear Mrs. Barnes?
Councillor Mary Barnes, 4.
Thank you. Councillor Bayliss.
4.
Councillor Bird.
4.
Councillor Brewerton.
4.
Councillor Brown.
Send them away.
If you can hear me, 4.
Councillor Byrne.
4.
Councillor Carroll.
4.
Councillor Clark.
4.
Councillor Coleman.
4.
Councillor Mrs. Cook.
4.
Councillor Courtell.
4.
Councillor Curtis.
4.
Councillor Dixon.
4.
Councillor Drayson.
4.
Councillor Mrs. Earl Williams.
4.
Councillor Errington.
4.
Councillor Field.
4.
Councillor Ganley,
4.
Councillor Gray,
4.
Councillor Harmer,
4.
Councillor Mrs Hart,
4.
Councillor Giawan,
No, Kevin.
4.
No.
Councillor Johnson,
What's his name?
4.
Councillor Mrs Kirby Green,
Cole.
4.
Councillor Langlands,
4.
Councillor Madeley,
4.
Councillor Maynard,
4.
Councillor Mear,
4.
Councillor Mooney,
4.
Councillor Norton,
4.
Councillor Oliver,
4.
Councillor Osborne,
4.
Councillor Proshak,
4.
Councillor Stevens,
4.
Councillor Thomas,
4.
Councillor Tempe,
4.
Councillor Vinehall.
4.
That's carried, Chairman. And can I also just advise Bernard Brown is with us now in the lobby. Would you like me to admit him?
Yes, you can
So we don't
admit him.
lose him.
Risk of losing him again, admit him, but he's going to have to sit through this bit.
Okay.
Thank you. I shall now proceed to deal with the reserved minutes. CB 100, CB 20-100. Councillor John Barnes, please.
Chairman, thank you very much. I want to move an amendment to this recommendation, which is to add the following words to the second recommendation on the paper. The words that I want to add are subject to the inclusion of provision for the redevelopment of Bexhill Leisure Centre. Do you want me to put those words in the chat?
Yes, please, Councillor Barnes. And also, you're saying that's an amendment to the wording of recommendation number 2?
Yep.
And is that amendment seconded? Councillor Ganley. Thank you, Councillor Ganley.
It's not working.
We'll just wait while Councillor Barnes puts that in so we can all see the wording. He's obviously can't speak to it while he's typing it. While Councillor Barnes is doing that, members, you know, if it does come to you beforehand, you can always email, well, fellow councillors, but you can always email me the amendment and Mrs. Cooper so that we can be ready for it. But I realise sometimes it appears in your brain on the day, so it can't always be done. But thank you. Typing mistakes will be severely punished. Thank you, Councillor Valls. So it now reads, say, adds the subject to the inclusion of for the redevelopment of Bexhill Leisure Centre. The floor is yours, Councillor Barnes.
Yes, Chairman. It's a very simple amendment, but two concerns that I have about looking at the capital programme. One, we have long had a proposal. It was in the last plan. I know it's strongly favoured by certain members of the Cabinet. It's strongly favoured by my group because we believe that as we come out of lockdown, there will actually be an enormous pressure for leisure facilities. And we believe that this is the right time, in fact, to make capital provision for that. Not least because it also serves the green agenda. There really can be no worse building in Bexhill for the kind of carbon excess that comes from poor buildings. And it seems to me that to be wasting 141,000 on a refurbishment of a building that is long past its sell-by date, which is actually contrary to all modern green principles, when we could actually be proceeding with something which would be to the enormous benefit of the residents of Bexhill and hopefully wider even to areas out Bexhill. And it seems to me we are simply pushing it too far off in the future. So I'm not saying it should be in the next year, but it seems to me that it should be very firmly in this capital programme, and we should not actually proceed to refurbish the outdated building, but re-provision the development altogether. I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Anyone wish to make a comment? Councillor Ganley, do you want to say anything in support as you seconded it?
Sorry, Chairman. I fully support the proposal. I think it's essential that the people of Bexhill and Rother can benefit from a decent building rather than one that spews out huge amounts of carbon and loses and is very inefficient. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chairman, and I acknowledge the comments from fellow councillors with regards to this project. It's something that is under review. It is something we are working with Freedom Leisure. We are working with officers, and we're mindful of ensuring that leisure facilities are continued. The current state of finances is something we would have to look long and hard at, but it's something that is there very much as a priority when we go forward. The interim arrangements will suffice, and that has been supported as to where we are at the moment.
Thank you. Councillor Eleanor Kirby-Green, please.
You're muted. Oh.
Sorry. I just think, given the situation we're in at the moment, coming out of the end of what is hopefully the end of this, there's no doubt in my mind that one of the reasons this country has actually done very badly in terms of death toll is actually because there are an awful lot of people, the health of the nation is not good. If you compare it to other countries on the continent, we do have an awful lot of people that are not in the greatest health. So I think that it's critical that we have a really attractive offer from a leisure centre to not only Bexhillians, but also people from outside Bexhill across Rother who would travel into Bexhill. And I'm just concerned that we're sort of sticking plasters over what we've got at the moment. And I really think, I'm glad that Councillor Oliver said that it's a priority, because I really think it should be a priority. It was certainly a priority some time ago, and I think we really all need to work together to deliver this, because I think it will be a huge benefit to Bexhill. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kirby-Green. Before I come to you, Councillor Thomas, Mr. Johnston, you want to interject?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think there needs to be an awareness that there is an impact on the revenue budget of any capital funding, particularly if it's funded through borrowing. What I would suggest, and I don't know if this
I'm afraid he froze to me. To everyone else as well?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll give him a couple of minutes to unfreeze. I suspect he will go and come back again, and I'll take his interjection after Councillor Richard Thomas, please.
Hello, Chair, members of the public, fellow councillors. I'd just like to come back on some of the arguments used. Whilst I would thoroughly accept the argument about the value of leisure centres, that's not the same as the value of deciding to build a new leisure centre at this particular moment. For a start, the pattern of leisure during the lockdown has been quite striking. People have taken to buying puppies. In fact, the whole of Bexhill is full of puppies at the present moment. People are cycling. People have got home gyms. There are many different forms of leisure, and we can't be certain that when the lockdown's over, that people will go back to the old level of leisure centre use. And that's very critical because swimming baths are only marginally profitable now. And if there's a real change in the pattern, then they could go from being profitable to actually losing money. But we're not alone in deciding to delay our leisure centre and put it on hold. East Herts is putting theirs on hold. Midhurst has put its plans on hold. Medway has put its plans on hold. The Godalming Leisure Centre project has been put on hold. The Larkhall Leisure Centre has been put on hold. The Caerphilly Leisure Centre has been put on hold. The Waverley Leisure Centre has been put on hold. And so has Northumberland. So basically, we're doing what every single sensible council up and down the country is doing. We're putting our plans on hold until it's a better time to actually think about them again. And so on, for those reasons, I'd like to suggest that this is opposed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Yes, Mr. Johnson, you're back with us.
Apologies for my brief interlude away, Chairman. No, I was just saying that there is potential impact on the revenue budget, particularly if this is funded through borrowing. What we could do is pick it up in the first review of the in the summer of the capital programme, or if otherwise, if members wish to approve it tonight, there's going to have to be a figure attached to this, and Mr. Bernard will have to do some fairly swift calculations of what the impact on the revenue budget are. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Johnston. Councillor Jay Brewerton.
Thank you, Chair. So I do believe post-COVID, whether it's this year, next year, year after, we are going to see a massive increase in mental health issues. I think just alone in my ward, I have seen that, personal increase amongst residents, family, friends. There's a lot of anxiety. People, admittedly, as Councillor Thomas has just pointed out, they are trying out different hobbies because obviously leisure centres are closed. I've sat on multiple meetings now for the LJ up and down the country with different individual councils. There are plenty of councils that, yes, they're closing leisure centres, in particular swimming pools, because they're very costly to run. However, there are plenty of councils who are reinvesting into leisure in many different ways. Swimming pools are becoming splash play parks. They're looking at the impact of tourism. Tourism will see an increase, in particular this year, next year, possibly the year after, of Britons who are going to holiday within, our area. And I think we need to be prepared for that. Our current offering is 40 years out of date. It's a very outdated building. I wasn't particularly happy about just looking at the refurbish option. However, I understood the impact on effectively our revenue budget, and having to fund everything through borrowing. I've been looking at alternative measures, which Councillor Oliver is aware of. And I think there are other ways that we could be looking at rebuilding our leisure centre along other projects that we're looking at the moment. So I would like to support what Councillor Barnes has actually suggested, and I would like us to actually take a look at that for the next meeting, if that would be possible, please.
Thank you, Councillor Brewerton. Councillor Carr-Maynard.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman, and I'm certainly heartened by what Councillor Brewerton has said. And I think surely we would all want Rother to provide the very best leisure facilities we possibly can, in the context and full understanding that it needs to be obviously properly costed. But the fact of the matter is we've got leisure facilities within Rother that are significantly below par. And there are clearly choices for any administration, but we, as on the Conservative side of the chamber, have made it very clear for a very, very long time that we wanted to see a comprehensive refurbishment on the leisure centre site that included housing, that included a hotel, but absolutely at the core of that was making sure that we had a first-rate recreational facilities, not just there, but obviously elsewhere in Bexhill, indeed Rother as well. And Councillor Brereton is absolutely right to allude to mental health issues. And I strongly take issue with the comments that Councillor Thomas has made, because I know there are councils up and down the country that are actually investing in their leisure facilities. And frankly, if we want people to move to Bexhill, to have healthy lifestyles in Bexhill, if we want to attract new people, looking at leisure facilities is something that people do. Gyms, generally speaking, prior to COVID, were hugely successful, and it was certainly a growth industry that I think as a council we certainly needed to look at. Wet facilities, of course, are costly, but we owe it to our residents because the health, as Councillor Kirby Green has alluded to, the health of our residents is of paramount importance, and that's especially a light's been shone on that in terms of COVID, particularly in those that are vulnerable. But also there's the very local context that in terms of the area of Bexhill where the leisure centre is located, and bringing people in from those vulnerable and deprived communities to offer them that leisure offer is hugely important. And the sticky plaster that this administration has put on there by means of just increasing a subsidy to the leisure provider just simply isn't enough, and we cannot kick it into the long grass. And clearly there is a choice here, a choice in terms of what we want to spend money on. And from this side of the chamber, we would certainly welcome not just a review, but a firm commitment that we will put a new leisure facility on that site. And that is what we're looking for tonight, a firm commitment that we will do that. And I'm sure that there are members of the administration that will support that point of view. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor McNabb. Councillor Jonathan Johnston, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Following Councillor Thomas's remarks, it's interesting to note that the Lib Dem-controlled North Norfolk District Council is going ahead with a state-of-the-art leisure centre, taking the opposite view in saying it will be much needed following the lifting of COVID restrictions. I think the same need will be demonstrated here in Bexhill and the surrounding Rother area. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Mrs Mary Barnes.
Thank you, Chairman. Oh, how I agree with the previous speakers. It is so essential for health, not only of the fit, Councillor Thomas, those who can get on bicycles, but those who can't, the sort of people who rely on first-rate physiotherapy, which includes swimming, in order to get fit. Also, those groups which are young mothers with their children, pensioners, the ones who are not terribly able. But the great thing is that this would be something for the whole of Rother, not just Bexhill, and would actually make it possible for people to come out and have a day in Bexhill, go to the leisure centre, go to the Delaware Pavilion, and make more use of the facilities in Bexhill. Bexhill is inclined to be somewhat insular, I think, in some of its views. Remember, Rother is made up of a huge area. It's approximately 19 miles from my house to the town hall. So, you know, remember us up in the frozen north of the patch. Please, will you consider this project? It is so needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Councillor Martin Mooney.
Thank you, Chair. I've lived, I suppose, for the past 10 to 12 years with dealing with a leisure centre, ups and downs, being disappointed. We had a swap of land, we had everybody working on the site to get it there. And here we are putting £140,000 into a dump hole. Let's get cracking and do the leisure centre, put it in the budget. Bexhill is calling out for a decent leisure centre. And we see time and time again on the media how exercise and having it available to citizens on a daily basis is so useful to mental health. And certainly I'm 100% behind this, and I think it's a wise move. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mooney. Councillor Terry Burton, please.
Hang on, let me just, thank you, Chair. We seem to be debating two things here. One is, are leisure facilities desirable in Bexhill? Well, in Rother, yes, of course they are. Do we need excellent leisure facilities? Yes. However, as Councillor Thomas pointed out, we don't yet know what post-COVID leisure facilities will look like. There is going to be a definite change in the way in which people use these facilities. We also have an update from Stuart Drew saying that he would like, if he could have waited, to have put more efficient boilers into the Delaware. Well, we don't want to be building. If we're building a new leisure centre, we want to build a state-of-the-art leisure centre which incorporates all the latest environmental advances and the advances that are going to be made in the way we provide leisure for the public. So I don't see there's any problem here. Yes, it is sticking plaster, but then it's been sticking plaster for how many years? I think quite a long time before we came, before the administration changed. I think that the thing has been shored up here and there over the years, and no doubt it is an out-of-date facility. But I think it would be foolhardy for us to try and second guess what sort of thing we need to build, what sort of environmental protections we need to put in at this point in time. Also, I think it would be foolhardy from a revenue point of view. So personally, I'm very, very supportive of not voting for this amendment, but I'm equally supportive that the issue of leisure facilities and the provision of leisure facilities for the whole of Rother should remain a priority. And as the water's clear, and as government funding becomes more clear, there's all sorts of funding streams that are aimed at leisure. We don't know what's going on at the moment, and to try and undertake a massive project in these changing times, I just feel would be foolhardy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. Councillor Gary Curtis, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I was a bit confused because the clue's in the name, Bexhill-on-Sea. I mean, historically, it's been associated with leisure facilities for probably the best part of 150 years, as I guess. It's always been known for its first-class facilities, being a seaside resort of renown. And post-COVID, I don't think anyone's got a clue of what's going to happen. But obviously, if we've got variety of whatever facilities that we've got facilities to hand, we have to make the best of what we've got. And provide that within whatever means we have at the moment. Nobody's can have a crystal ball and say, well, in such and such, we're going to do such and such. I think we've got it all here. It's very difficult times. We need to make the best of what we've got, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Curtis. Councillor Jonathan Vine-Hall, please.
Thank you. Very interesting to listen to this. This is clearly an ambush proposal. Thank you very much. It's always nice to bring something in at the which is not mentioned anywhere in the report for discussion. I truly wonder whether our Conservative colleagues recognised when the Alliance took over that they had left a projected deficit eating into reserves, and when the leisure centre proposal, the comprehensive proposal as referred to by Councillor Maynard, was brought forward, firstly, the affordable housing hadn't been costed out properly. The hotel disappeared, and the remaining leisure centre, the intention was to borrow against reserves, which, had that been approved at that time, would have taken this council within a whisper of bankruptcy. You can shake your head all you like, Councillor Maynard, but nobody paid any attention to that. And it is the inappropriate time. I fully support what Councillor Byrne has said. I think he said it eloquently. It is not the time. This is just a little ambush that's been thrown in. Thank you very much. It's going to take a lot of time to catch up on the other important issues. Everyone is committed to leisure facilities. Yes, it's important. I wonder if anyone in this meeting actually knows how many members there are to the Bexhill Leisure Centre. 1,500 out of a population of what, 45,000 in Bexhill. 1,500. So, and what was the proposal for? It was like, I can't even remember now, 14 million or something like that. So, you know, it's about managing the situation. It's about managing our way through COVID, seeing where that ends up. There are other priorities as well that have to be mixed into any plan. And as we know, this leisure centre plan has been on the table for 7 years or more. And I think Councillor Mooney said 10 years or something like that. I don't know. Well, if it's so important, why wasn't it done 10 years ago? If it's so important, why does it have to be done in the middle of a pandemic or approved? Do not send this authority into bankruptcy. It will be an ongoing discussion depending on the trends that come out of this COVID pandemic. And it is very clear, it's a clear message across the country that there was already a trend in the change in the way leisure facilities were offered. And that is, I think, the most important point. Wait and see. And let's not bankrupt the council this week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Vinehall. Councillor Christine Bayliss, please.
Yes, I wasn't going to speak because this isn't my area of, it isn't my ward area or my portfolio holding, but I am going to say that I think the course that the Rother Alliance are taking on this is the right one. It's to wait and see. It's exactly what Councillor Curtis said. Make the best of what we've got for now, and then wait and see where we are in the future once we've come out of COVID. We're going to have a discussion, a couple of agenda items about a local lottery, where I'm sure we're going to get some faux outrage about encouraging gambling. And yet, to me, this is perhaps the worst example of somebody wanting to gamble millions of pounds worth of ratepayers' money or council taxpayers' money on a project where we have no sound basis for proving demand. So I would support the recommendation, don't support the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Bayliss. Councillor Mooney, I'm not going to call you to speak again. You have spoken once already, and I'm just thinking we're spending an awful lot of time on this amendment. So I'm not going to call you again. Thank you. Councillor Kevin Dixon, please.
Thank you, Chairman. And it's been an interesting debate, but Councillor Maynard wants a firm commitment. I'll give him a firm commitment. I'll give him a firm commitment that we will pick this up at the next review of the capital programme, because as Councillor Oliver said, it is an aim of the Alliance and always has been, and that hasn't gone away. We just need to know what services are going to look like after COVID and what we're going to provide. And most importantly, it has to be funded. The original plans that were given to this administration and passed over were simply not funded. And we cannot bring and will not bring a proposal to council or cabinet that is not fully funded. So on that basis, while I'm quite happy to be looking at this in the capital programme as we go forward, this amendment tonight cannot be supported. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. I've got a question, please, for Mr. Johnson. You made reference to if this recommendation were passed tonight, or the amendation were passed tonight, that Mr. Venner would have to be doing lots of quick calculations. Is that necessary, or can it be as open as the wording of Councillor Barnes's amendment?
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, I think Councillor Dixon has summed up the situation quite well, that it can be looked at again when we look at both the medium-term financial strategy and the way forward, but it will fundamentally affect the budget tonight. The previous budget was £15 million. If you put that into our current calculations, that will, that will have a major impact on a lot of the figures in there. So what I would suggest to members is that it is reviewed, as has been said by a number of members, when we look at the capital programme and the medium-term financial strategy later in the year, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. No other people wishing to speak. I'm now going to put the amendment to a vote, please. It's been proposed by Councillor Barnes and seconded by Councillor Ganley.
Does one have a right of reply, Chairman?
Oh, sorry, Councillor Barnes, yes.
Sorry, Chairman, I'll speak without my camera. I just wanted to make 2 or 3 brief comments. I will be very brief. First of all, I find it very odd listening to people that they want to make something a priority, but not put it in the present capital budget. I heard a figure which I think is broadly right, that this will probably cost about 13 to 14 million. That will probably cost you something of the order in revenue terms of about 560,000, give or take. Now that is a large sum, but in fact, I hope people will remember what they've argued on the leisure centre, which I propose to vote for, when they come to vote on the town hall. Thank you, Chairman. I beg to move my amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. So as I say, we'll vote first of all on the amendment, which was for those who can't remember, I've scrolled back, and it was to add to recommendation 2, subject to the inclusion of provision for the redevelopment of the Bexhill Leisure Centre. Lisa Cooper, over to you for the vote on the amendment, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So yes, just to reiterate, this is for the amendment. So Councillor John Barnes.
For the amendment.
Mrs. Barnes.
For.
Bayliss.
Against.
Bird.
For.
Brewerton.
Abstain.
Brown.
For.
Byrne.
Against.
Carroll.
For.
Clark.
Against.
Coleman.
Against.
Mrs. Cook.
Against the amendment.
Cortell.
Against.
Curtis.
For.
Dixon.
Against.
Drayson.
Against.
Mrs. L. Williams.
For.
Errington.
Against.
Field.
Against.
Ganley.
For.
Gray.
Against.
Harmer.
Against.
Mrs. Hart.
She has left the meeting, Lisa. She had another meeting to go to.
Okay, thank you. Giawan.
Against.
Johnson.
For.
Mrs. Kirby Green.
For.
Langlands.
Abstain.
Maidley.
Against.
Maynard. Maynard.
For.
Mia.
Against.
Mooney.
For.
Norton.
Against.
Oliver. Oliver.
Against.
Osborne.
For.
Proshak.
Against.
Stevens.
For.
Thomas.
Against.
Timpey.
Against.
Vinehall.
Against.
That amendment was lost, Chairman.
Thank you, Lisa. So I'm afraid now we have to vote on the reserve minute itself, unamended. I can't see any way around this, so I'm afraid to you again, Lisa.
Thank you, Chairman.
Sorry?
Sorry, yes, I just said thank you, Chairman.
Okay, CB 2100 unamended. Thank you.
Councillor John Barnes.
Against.
Councillor Mary Barnes.
Against.
Councillor Bayliss.
For.
Councillor Bird.
Against.
Councillor Brereton.
For.
Councillor Brown.
Against.
Councillor Byrne.
That was to rescue.
For.
Councillor Carroll.
Against.
Councillor Clark.
For.
Councillor Coleman.
For.
Councillor Mrs Cook.
For.
Councillor Courtell.
For.
Councillor Curtis.
Against.
Councillor Dixon.
For.
Councillor Drayson.
For.
Councillor Mrs Earl Williams.
Abstain.
Councillor Errington.
For.
That's good.
Councillor Field.
For.
What did Jay Burton do?
Councillor Ganley.
Against.
Councillor Gray.
For.
Councillor Harmer.
For.
Sorry, Councillor Harmer.
For.
Councillor Giowan.
For.
Councillor Johnson.
Against.
Councillor Mrs Kirby Green.
For.
Councillor Langlands.
For.
Councillor Madeley. Councillor Madeley.
For.
Councillor Maynard.
Against.
Councillor Mear.
For.
Councillor Mooney.
Against.
Councillor Norton.
For.
Councillor Oliver.
For.
Councillor Osborne.
Against.
Councillor Proshak.
For.
Councillor Stevens.
Against.
Councillor Thomas.
For.
Councillor Tempe.
For.
Councillor Vinehall.
For.
That's carried, Chairman.
Thank you, Lisa. Moving on to reserve matter CB 2101, development of a local lottery to support community funding. Councillor Barnes, Councillor John Barnes.
Chairman, I've thought a lot about this in the week since it was first proposed. And as I've thought about it, my doubts have grown. They're nothing at all to do with a dislike of gambling, although I think some people may be against on those grounds. I have a number of reasons for serious doubt about this proposal. The first is the effect on existing lotteries, which the most important, they're not the only one in our area, is that for St Michael's Hospice. I think it's also a worrying development. We have always ring-fenced community funding and looked after it. I can see that as the lottery fund develops, there will be a tendency not to regard it as an add-on, but as a substitute. Thirdly, we will actually find that what we're saying to community groups is that unless you sell our tickets and get a bit of the proportion out of those sales, then somehow you are not playing your part. It will set one community group against another group. And that really worries me in the charitable sector. I would feel slightly less uncomfortable about it if we were not going out to a private provider. Frankly, I have never believed the figure quoted to me of 6 figures for the costs of running this lottery. I'm told now that the private provider, part of what he bids is insurance against somebody winning the major prize. It's rather odd, it seems to me, that that prize money doesn't come out of the lottery, but is an insurance payment paid by the private provider. But the private provider is going to charge us a sum for running this. We could have run it ourselves, I think, just as cost effectively and without putting a profit in the provider's hands. So for a number of reasons, Chairman, which I hope I've explained, I'm very uneasy about this departure. It was rather sprung on us. My doubts have grown, and I certainly am not prepared to vote for it tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Councillor Harmer.
Thank you, Chair. I fully support this initiative. I find it very exciting, and I'm the chair of one particular group that would benefit, Friends of Little Common. We're a not-for-profit organisation, and we don't qualify for any of the other grants. And this is something that I think could benefit lots of charities in the area as well. We do fundraising, and it'd be a medium of which we could use, and they could choose who they or the benefactor could be. And to say it costs what, 10,000 to set up, and then someone else takes responsibility away. I think it's a win-win situation. In terms of gambling, it really is low down there. Most people I know will put a quid or put a tenner maybe now and then on buying a lottery ticket. Everybody understands the lottery. It's not complicated. Not everybody understands how to fill a complex grant form in. So I fully support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harmer. Anyone else wish to speak to this matter before? Councillor Gary Curtis. Oh, I've opened the floodgates now. Councillor Gary Curtis.
Thank you, Chair. It was point of clarification, please, because the costs for the setup or for running it are indicated at 80 to 100,000, and yet Councillor Harmer's suggested sort of 10,000. So could I just have a point of clarification, please?
My reading, and I'll see if anybody else comes out. My reading is that the 10,000 was relating to the external lottery company, and the 80 to 100 was internal. So I think it was chalk and cheese. Can anyone confirm that, please?
Chairman, just if I may, the expected setup costs were £10,000. That's where the £10,000 figure came from.
Ah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Curtis. As I say, I open the floodgates. Councillor Suprachak, please.
Thank you, Chairman. May I reserve my right to speak at the end?
Yes. Councillor Martin Moody, please.
Thank you, Chair. Why? I said I voted against this at Cabinet, and I still am of the same mind. Why should community funding, community efforts be dependent on a lottery? It just doesn't add up, does it? Here we have a chance, and for years the Conservative regime did do that. They made sure that was still there. So what if it's part of coming out of reserves? Everything comes out of reserves in the end. But believe me, the reserves are propped up by council tax and by business rates, which we all pay, most of us pay. So to have community funding dependent on a lottery, it just doesn't add up. It is obnoxious. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Mooney. Councillor Tony Ganley, please.
Thank you, Chairman. My concern is that this proposal would seem to suggest that funding for community grants would no longer be ring-fenced, and that would concern me considerably. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ganley. Councillor Carmine now, please.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. And I want to emphasise the point that, not repeat, but emphasise the point that Councillor Ganley's just made, because one thing, and I think that this be absolutely fair, that this shouldn't be a party political issue, this setting up of the lottery, and nor should, in fact, the community grants, which has been universally supported by members from all parties. The Community Grants Fund has done an awful lot of good across the whole of the Rother for many, many years. Tens of thousands of pounds spent on really important, fantastic projects that are properly scrutinised by a panel and by Cabinet, properly supported by their local members. And you know, it is really one of the flagships of the authority. What concerns me about this particular agenda item is it's not what it does say, frankly, Chairman, it's what it doesn't. We have always, at the Conservative side, we have always ring-fenced and made it very clear that we would continue to support community grants at the level that we always have done. And I can reassure Councillor Mrs Bayliss that this isn't about gambling. This is quite low level. I'd certainly agree with that. But I do want to echo the comments that other councillors have made, that the local populace, in terms of what they choose to do in terms of a low-level flutter, if we call it that, you can only spend your money once. I don't think we're going to get new people who want to join a lottery. And if it took money away from an organisation like St Michael's Hospice, that would be really dangerous. And for that reason, I have serious misgivings about what is proposed. But if we were to see that this was going to complement the money that we already award to community grants, I think that most members would support it. But I think as it is, it's not clear in the recommendation that you would protect the current level of community grants. And for that reason, I wouldn't be able to support it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Maynard. Councillor Paul Osborne, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I personally don't have a problem with this, and I would support it. What I would say is like colleagues before, I don't see this as replacing the community grant scheme. I would see it as assisting, if you like, with the funding. I think I'm right in thinking that the original community grants funding came years ago when we changed the council tax banding on second properties from 90 to 100%. And I believe I'm right in thinking that it was that 10% extra that was put in towards the community fund. So as long as there's always money in the pot for the community fund, then I don't have a problem with supporting this as an additional to, or you know, if it goes really well, then if it takes less money out of reserves, then fine. But I don't have a problem with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Osborne. Councillor Catherine Field, please.
Thank you, Chair. And actually, Councillor Osborne has said a great deal of what I was about to say. And I think we can all agree that the community grants has done some amazing good in the district. And however we fund it, the distribution mechanism with the panel and the discussion and the application will remain the same. The point of this, though, is, as Councillor Osborne said, to enhance the programme and be complementary to the existing way we have of funding it, because reserves, whoever pays for them, are finite. You can only spend them once. It's not like normal revenue, whereas selling lottery tickets, it is recurring income, which I think is a good thing. And I don't think it's quite right, actually, to say that you're selling to the same pool and people only spend their money once. I have never in my life bought a lottery ticket. And I have no intention of starting, but I might just buy one of these because I know what the good causes are that it is supporting. So I think the pool is expandable, and it's all right shaking your head, Councillor Maynard. I am telling you how I see things. There is an expandable pool. And the spin-off for this, of course, is that not only do we get money from the community to bolster the pot for the community grants, we also help charities in a small way at the same time, which is a good thing to do because we certainly aren't in a position to give them grants and support all the good work they do. So I'm really quite surprised to find there's any discussion about this whatsoever. We are currently spending reserves on community grants. You can only spend them once. This is a way of finding other methods of funding those grants and doing even more good work for the communities we represent. So I, for one, should be voting in favour of this.
Thank you, Councillor Field. Councillor Mooney, I'm assuming you hit your button twice, so I'm not going to call you to speak on this one again.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
That's
Chair,
okay.
sorry, yes.
Councillor Dixon, please. Kevin Dixon.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to confirm for the record that community grants are not going anywhere. We will continue with the ever so popular community grants. That isn't open to debate today. What we are doing is looking at alternative ways of providing funds to pay for these community grants. Over the years, as it's been mentioned, it's been taken from reserves every year. It comes out of a reserve pot, which is fine, but in times of plenty. At the moment, we are not in times of plenty. As anyone may have noticed, we've had a pandemic going on. We've spent an awful lot of money and reserves are starting to deplete. Therefore, we need to look at alternative ways of bringing some money in to pay for these community grants, which, I repeat, we are committed to. So anyone who's looked at the SIL working group will have noticed that we've been analysing the community grants, what's been given out, and see if any of them would have qualified for strategic SIL over the past few years to look at alternative ways of funding. So in summary, Chairman, we're not getting rid of community grants. We're just looking at alternative and sensible ways of funding them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Councillor Jonathan Vinehall. Councillor Vinehall.
I think it would be very useful for a number of members to read documents like the SIL Group workings, because it would help them understand these things. When I listen to this discussion, everyone is entitled to their opinion, but it sounds like a lot of people have went to sleep and have just woken up 20, 25 years later. This is not the first discussion of a lottery in the world. There are thousands of organisations across the country, local authorities, many of which are included in that group, that run these lotteries very successfully without cannibalising other charities. In fact, many charities use this sort of lottery as to fund, because they can't run them by themselves or they're not big enough, so they use these sort of lotteries. I do just want to draw another point. This is not party political, and I draw Councillor Maynard's comment. This council is made up of a significant number of independents. It is not party political discussion, but it just bemuses me that we're having a discussion about the concept of lotteries. I mean, it is ridiculous. This is a very good way of involving community groups who will get 60p in the pound towards whatever their cause is, and it could be whatever cause, including St Michael's Hospice, if that's where you want to put the money. So it can actually piggyback onto many organisations, and will go towards filling that gap that we were kindly left with. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vinehall. Councillor Sam Coleman, please.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I think it's great that this administration are taking strides to ensure that these community groups and these charities will have access to other forms of funding. I mean, in my work as the chair of the Anti-Poverty Task and Finish group, I've been speaking to a lot of charities that are on the ground throughout this pandemic and beforehand, and I'm sure afterwards, dealing with poverty, dealing with deprivation, dealing with people who have a lot of issues. And anytime you have any conversation with these charities and you mention the idea of a community lottery, they jump up and down with glee, because it is an amazing way for even very small charities who maybe wouldn't be able to fund their own lottery to sign up. People can choose, as Councillor Vinehall said, people can choose which charity their money goes to. So if St Michael's Hospice wanted to join in on the scheme, people could choose to still donate to St Michael's Hospice, or they could choose to donate to a smaller charity. They could choose to donate to Heart of Sidley, for example, in my ward, or many other organisations who currently don't run charities. And it just ensures that whatever the Conservative government continue to throw at us, considering the years and years of austerity that have caused local authorities to have to look at measures like this to fund community groups, because we don't have the income, we don't have the revenue. Whatever they may throw at us in the future with a second austerity, whatever the pandemic may throw at us, these community groups are safe, they are funded, and they are able to deliver vital services to members of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Terry Byrne, please.
Thank you, Chair. A lot of what I was going to say is just being covered by Councillor Coleman. I'm not sure that everybody has fully understood the workings of this lottery. It is a very, very cleverly set up piece of software which does allow charities who would never be able to run their own lotteries. It allows them to buy in very quickly and very easily with no upfront costs to this lottery. And as has been said, the person playing the lottery, the people making the donations, can target their donations at any particular charity they want, or put it into a general pool. So the other thing is that, of course, the lottery ticket, nobody's going to go into a shop and buy a ticket. You buy with a debit card or a banker's order, much in the way that the British Legion run their puppy lottery. And I think this will, lots of people will find it very easy. People with disposable income will find this method a very easy way of supporting the Rother Community Grants Programme and Rother charities in general. So I would commend those who are in two minds about it to look more carefully at the exact way in which this lottery runs. I was very sceptical at the start of the presentation, but the more I heard about the way it had been thought out, the way the software makes it very, very easy for small charities to join in, the way it makes it easy for the people playing the lottery to funnel their contribution to a particular charity. I just think this is an excellent scheme. And as Councillor Coleman says, we don't know what's coming down the track. We never do with the government at the moment. But certainly, if this ensures that come what may, the community grants programme will not only carry on, but will be enhanced, then I think this is a marvellous idea.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Sue Projak, you reserve the right to come back.
Thank you, Chair. I do hope that those who have reservations have listened to the supporters of it, because they've all explained it really, really well. And I hope that they understand those explanations and can be reassured by them. Just out of interest, the community grant started a very long time ago. It was by the Lib Dems when they had the largest group. And what happened was the treasurer at the time did a very clever thing, because again, our finances were in a dire position, but he did a very clever thing and took away the penny rate from the parishes. That was the penny rate that was matched. And in compensation, we started the community grant scheme, and it extended to Bexhill over the years. And nobody's disputing that community grant scheme isn't doing good stuff. It's going to stay. The thing about it is mainly the finances, because reserves, and Councillor Field said it very, very clearly, if you use reserves, they're gone. Once they're gone, they're gone. They're never replaced, never. And what we need to do is actually find a way to make the community grant sustainable. And this is partly the way, it's not all the way, partly the way. And we have committed to keep the community grants going. You can't ring fence in reserves forever. And as the Treasurer has told us for many years now, it's not sustainable. Well, we have listened, and we are being responsible by providing an extra source of information, of revenue. The effect on existing lotteries is not the same because, as Councillor Field said, you might choose to support one thing but not another. People support charities in a very personal way. I've talked about the ring fencing, which was one of Councillor Barnes's problems with it. He's suggesting that it's going to set a community group against each other, one against each other. I cannot see how that would happen at all. The National Lottery, for Councillor Mooney, I wonder how many projects across Rother have actually been delivered because of the National Lottery. And so lotteries do good things. And this is a community lottery, very, very popular, as has been mentioned. The very first one this one provider did was in Vale, because again, there was pressure on budgets. That's why they did it. It was one of the first online ones, and 40 causes signed up for the first draw. So causes, charities may get 2 bites of the cherry. They could have a community grant and they could have some income from a lottery ticket. I think that the cost of the setup and the cost of running it, if you vote against it tonight, and if the vote wins, if that vote wins, this will not happen. It just will not happen. We do not have the resources. It is a really high risk venture by doing it ourselves. For example, an external company would do the banking, would do the transaction fees, would do dedicated phone line, running the site, the website, giving player support, marketing, sorting out the VAT. Huge number of jobs that we just do not have the resources for. They produce bespoke marketing materials and relaunch from time to time to encourage people to buy, to drive ticket growth. The other thing is that if you have a gambling issue, this is one of the most risk-free by the Gambling Commission, as low risk in terms of encouraging gambling, because it's not an impulse buy. You have to make a decision and do it regularly. And also they have safeguards, so that if somebody bought more than 20 tickets, they actually get check with these people. So it's a very risk-free, and it mitigates the risk to those problem gamblers who gamble on impulse. And let me just say that over 80 local authorities, for one company I looked at, 80 local authorities, schools, charities, unions, societies are all using this way of fundraising. And fundraising has been appalling this year, the COVID time. Charities haven't been able to get out there and do their fetes and their tombolas and their raffles. They just haven't been able to do it. And so this is going to be really stimulating for them. Eastbourne and Lewis, if you look at neighbours, they're about to no, they do a lottery like this. Tunbridge Wells does it. Wealdon is about to join us doing it. So have a bit of confidence in what we're trying to do. You can always come back and we can look at it and see if it's working or if it's actually doing those things that you are concerned about. But I promise you, I'm sure this will be a way of protecting the community grants. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Prochak. I'm going to move this to. Sorry, yes, point of order, Councillor Maynard.
Thank you, and I say it genuinely to be constructive. The issue for me, and I know some of my colleagues, is that we want to see a commitment. Ring fencing is perhaps the wrong word. Is at the level of the current level of funding. If Councillor Ms. Dixon or Councillor Prochak could assure me and perhaps other members because this is, as I say, not a party political. It's not a political decision in any type, way, shape, or form. Councillor Vinall was quite wrong to say it's party political. It's not political at all. What this is, it's just it is taking a pragmatic decision. And our concern, when I speak for the most part for my colleagues, is that we still have community grants at the same level that they have been for years. If we could receive that assurance, because that's what's missing in the recommendation. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I'm not quite sure that is a point of order, but you've said it. Thank you. I'm now going to move to Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chairman. I am able to respond to that particular comment from Councillor Maynard, and we are committed. It's been said before, and it will continue to be said, we are committed to support community grants. This is about seeking alternative funding sources, the resources available to keep the community grants at the level that has been agreed and will continue. I hope that basically reassures those members this evening as to the commitment of this administration.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. I'm now going to move to a vote on this reserve minute, which is 3B20-101, which has already been moved by Councillor Oliver and seconded by Councillor Prochak. Fair warning, Lisa, I will have a procedure for you once we've done this vote. So can we now vote on minute CB20-101, please? To you, Lisa.
Thank you, Chairman. John Barnes.
Against.
Mary Barnes.
Against.
Bayliss.
For.
Bird.
Against.
Brewerton.
For.
Brown. Brown. Byrne.
For.
Carroll.
Against.
Clark.
For.
Coleman.
For.
Mrs. Cook.
For.
Courtell.
For.
Curtis.
For.
Dixon.
For.
Drayson.
For.
Mrs. L. Williams.
For.
Errington.
For.
Field.
For.
Against.
Ganley. Gray.
For.
Harmer.
For.
Giawan.
For.
Johnson.
Against.
Mrs. Kirby Green. Mrs. Kirby Green.
Sorry, for.
Langlands.
For.
Madeley.
For.
Maynard.
For.
Mere.
For.
Mooney.
Against.
Norton.
For.
Oliver.
For.
Osborne.
For.
Proshak.
For.
Stevens.
For.
Thomas.
For.
Tenpe.
For.
Vinehall.
For.
That's carried, Chairman.
Thank you, Lisa. Now, Lisa, don't blame me for not knowing. I know we still have one reserved minute, but I'm also aware that Mr. Brown has been sitting here for ages, having lost the connection and come back. And to fit in his question, agenda item 5 now, or do I have to finish this particular item?
Chairman, I would say it's in your gift. You can all reorder the agenda as you see fit. So if you would like to do that, I think that's up to you. And yeah, I would say it's your call, Chair.
Thank you. In that case, members, I'm going to hold fire on the discussion about CB20-102, the the Town Hall redevelopment proposals. I'm going to revert to agenda item 5, which is a question from a member of the public, Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown, I wish to apologise for letting you in early and then kicking you out, and then the in and outs you've had. But you're here now. Welcome. And your written question and the answer has been circulated to members. Do you wish to read out your question in full?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, yes.
Okay, right, so I'll read the question. The planning inspector allowed the appellant to appeal on the case of outline plan refusal at Clavering Walk. What were the total costs, direct and indirect, to the council for this appeal, and what was the value of the new homes bonus forfeit as a result of the lost appeal? The appeal by Sea Change Sussex and Westcott Leach on the Buckholt Lane application has now been held, but at the time of asking this question, the decision has not been announced. What estimates and or provisions have been made for the cost for the council for 1, a worst case scenario where there is a lost appeal and costs awarded? What is the estimate of the appellants and the council's costs to be met by the council? And the second one is second level scenario, whatever the result, what is the council's own cost having to be met in defending this appeal?
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Councillor Jonathan Hall, please.
Thank you, and good evening, Bernard. I think you probably have the summary of the answers here. So on your first question in relation to Clavering Walk, the total direct and indirect costs were £73,387, and the new homes bonus might have been about 500,000, but that would really depend on the final number of units, which would be determined at the reserved matters. On the appeal by Sea Change Sussex and Westcott Leach, firstly, this appeal hasn't been determined. The total cost, which is estimated for the council, is £35,500, and I have a breakdown if you wanted that. But in terms of the appellant's costs, of course, the appeal hasn't been determined at this time, so we don't know what the cost claim is that they have put forward to the inspector. We argued strongly against a cost claim at the hearing, so until and depending whether a cost claim is determined, we don't know what that cost might be. And your last question was your second level scenario. Whatever the result, the costs, the council's own costs, yeah, and that is 35,500 again, same figure.
Thank you, Councillor Vinehall. Mr. Brown, do you wish to put a supplementary question to Councillor Vinehall arising out of the answers given?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I note the figure given, that there are 2 points to this, but I note the figure given for the forfeited new homes bonus is £500,000. I have to say this is very different from a figure of 633,000, which was provided under a Freedom of Information request from officers, which was provided on the 17th of February. Perhaps Councillor Vinehall would like to look at that after this meeting. But my supplementary question relates specifically to the Buckholt Lane planning application. Sorry, I'm waiting so long, I've lost my throat. If the council has lost the appeal, the cost to the council taxpayer will probably be in excess of £100,000. If, however, the council has won the appeal, the Rotherham economy stands to lose £1.94 million in government funding. CELEP will have to reallocate the money away from the Sea Change project because the funding is planning permission dependent before the end of this financial year. Whichever way you look at it, whether it's 100,000 or 1.9 million, it would appear the Rother taxpayers lose again. This seems bizarre that the council actually owns 6.63% of Sea Change Sussex, is registered at Company's House as a person of significant control, and even has a director on the board. My supplementary question is, does the administration accept that together with all these items, that we've got over £2 million which has been lost on housing applications that have gone to appeal because we got it wrong. You may not agree with it, but we got it wrong. That these are unacceptable losses, that the council since 2019 has been totally responsible, and can Councillor Vinehall tell Rother residents what steps is now being taken to make sure this incompetence isn't repeated again? Thank you, Chairman.
Well, that's a very long question. I don't think there's been any incompetence, and the Clavering Walk application, and in fact the appeal, was being held before this administration. So really, this administration has had no input into that whatsoever. So if there's any incompetence, it falls on the previous administration. However, having said that, I don't think it was. It was a planning decision based on planning policy, and I think it was, from what I can see, quite an acceptable position to take. Unfortunately, this is what planning is about, and you can't say we lost a certain amount of money in new homes bonus. If it was a bad application for whatever reason, you can just continue to make figures up as much as you like. But if it's a bad application, it's a bad application. It's the same case with the Sea Change Sussex. The council had been engaging with Sea Change for a very long period of time over their application, which sadly they refused to acknowledge the discussions, and Sea Change owned the land but had Westcott Leach do the application. If you read the planning policy in the core strategy in the DASA, it requires a master plan for that site, and Sea Change were not prepared to do that master plan, and tried to produce tried to sell part of the site to Westcott Leach, and therefore only put in a part application, if you like. It was a poor show. Worse than that, the actual application were for units which were so far away from the policy that there was no chance that they would be accepted by either the planners or the planning committee. So I'm afraid if they have caused themselves to lose funding, then it's only because they did not engage for some year before that application came to council to bring forward an application which was policy compliant. Simple as that.
Thank you, Councillor Vinehall. Thank you, Mr. Brown, for submitting your questions this evening. I will now please ask you to leave the meeting room. I remind you that you may follow the rest of the meeting on our YouTube broadcast. Sorry about the mix-up earlier on. Before moving on, I would like to take this opportunity to encourage more residents to ask questions of us, their council, rather than perhaps accepting whatever they hear through rumour or in the media. Residents can submit questions in relation to RDC services in writing, and may, if they wish, ask them in person, as Mr. Brown did this evening, or if they prefer, they can ask for them to be read out by the chair. We do not hide from being asked questions, so please ask your councillors more questions. Thank you. One moment. Yes, I just want to say at that point, Councillor Dixon did put in the chat that he was a director of Sea Change. He's our council's representative, but I don't think that was affected. I'm now returning to agenda item 7 and the minutes of the Cabinet meeting on the 21st of February. There are some declarations of interests in connection to this. Councillor Projak, Councillor Timpey, Councillor Field, Councillor Vinehall, and in fact Councillor Vinehall is going to leave while we discuss this. Lisa will remember to invite him back in. Were there others?
Yes, Chairman, I will leave.
Thank you, Councillor Projak.
I just verbally redeclare, and I will leave at this point and hopefully come back later.
Yes, I'm sure we'll still be here. Thank you. Thank you, members. Right, CB 2102 Town Hall redevelopment proposals called over by Councillor Bayliss. Councillor Bayliss, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Well, I'm absolutely delighted actually to be able to present this particular recommendation this evening. I'd like to, first of all, to thank officers for bringing forward this report. This is an exciting opportunity, and I'm sure some of my colleagues will want to speak in support. They're radical proposals, not for a redevelopment of the town hall. Let's be absolutely clear about that. This is about a renaissance of the town hall. It's about retaining the historic town hall building and the council chamber and enhancing that. It's about creating new green office space, which helps us as a council achieve our climate change targets. It provides a civic space with commercial offices in central location, and it improves the public's access to a whole range of services, almost like a sort of the potential for a one-stop shop, including county council services and Department for Work and Pensions. One of the important things for me is it helps rather recruit and retain staff. And it would be a fantastic state-of-the-art building for people to work in, and I think we owe that to our staff to give them the very best facilities. And then, the cherry on the cake, if you like, it provides up to 14 town centre flats, and I'm hoping that some of those will be affordable or for rental purpose. I mean, at Cabinet, there was quite an interesting debate, and obviously there are a lot of views about this, and I'm sure they're going to be expressed in the following debate. And on reflection, I think it's important that this proposal has the benefit of being considered by the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I think that's really, really important that it goes there. So I've got an amendment that I would like to propose, which will add that the head of service, acquisition, transformation and regeneration consult with the Overview and Scrutiny Committee prior to procuring the services required to complete the detailed designs. And I think this shows that we've listened, we're open, we're transparent, and I would ask my colleagues to support that amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bayliss. I see it's been seconded. Oh, sorry, Councillor Dixon. You seconded the motion?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'd like to reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Paul Osborne, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I think I'll start by welcoming the additional recommendation, if you like, from Council. Yeah, the minute from Cabinet wouldn't have allowed much of a debate. So I'm pleased to see this that we can get it sort of out in the open, if you like, as Councillor Bayliss has said, and that all members can see the proposals and go through it. Also welcome that will happen before Mr. Hook can go out and engage agents and architects and whatever else. I would say I think it's worth saying that this recommendation to me seems a little bit sort of back to front. You've got a large figure there for your specialist fees, but if I'm ever doing any building or anybody else doing any building, what you do first, you get the basics. You get a basic sort of plan together, get your planning permission sorted out. Once you've got the tick in the box on the planning, you then engage the
go for building regs, as we say in building, and get your structural calcs and everything else done, which is the sort of expensive bit. So it seems a bit sort of back to front, but I'm happy with the additional recommendation. So I'm happier now to support this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Osborne. Councillor Catherine Field, please.
Thank you. Yes, I also support Councillor Bayliss's amendment. It seems to me a very sensible way to go forward, because this does need looking at very carefully. It's a very large project. But I start from the point really of our staff, to whom we have a duty of care. Anybody who has been behind the public areas in the town hall will know that they are working in very, very difficult conditions, cramped offices, cheek by jowl, and they're very uncomfortable. The heating is either on or it's off. So there's no chance ever, apart from about 3 times a year, of being comfortable where they are working. And we know the conditions are awful. We also know, because we have done a staff survey, that staff working patterns have changed and are set to change once we're all out of lockdown, because I think we've all realised that there are great advantages to not having to drive endless miles to get to work. So there we will have more idea of how many people we need to be accommodating. I think the papers say it's 120. So we can preserve our lovely iconic town hall and make the people who work there comfortable while they are working for us. And that, of course, has a benefit for all of us in that happy staff work better. It's quite straightforward. Now, talking about the heating, I think we have here an enormous opportunity for being very imaginative and creating about our heating. And I know we haven't got the detail yet, but I would love to see a ground source heat pump there as the centre of some community-based heating to get a lot of the homes and businesses in that part of Bexhill off-grid and using really sustainable fuel. And of course, we have an environment strategy. And one of the strands of our environment strategy is that we'll be carbon neutral, of course, but we will look at our own estate and how we run our own buildings. And this is an opportunity to actually do what we're asking other people to do. We have to lead by example. And somebody said a while ago, well, not that long ago, actually, that you can be just as green by planting a hedge around the town hall. That actually isn't true. We need to do more than that. We need to think about the heating, the insulation, the style of the building, and the comfort of our staff. So I think that whatever else we do with this project, that has to be a crucial way forward. Our staff are our resource. They're our main resource. They must be comfortable while they're working, and they must be working in a sustainable and environmentally friendly building. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Field. Before I come to Councillor Eleanor Kirby-Green, Councillor John Barnes has a point of order.
Chairman, I just wanted a ruling from you on whether we are speaking to the amendment or whether you are proposing to take a debate on both the motion and the amendment at the same time.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes.
Chairman, could I assist, if I may?
Yes.
The amendment has been seconded. So therefore, the amendment is the item on the table for discussion.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Councillor Eleanor Kirby-Green.
Thank you, Chairman. I think there are a number of things here. I think, first of all, the figure seems awfully large for sort of consulting and not actually doing anything other than getting sort of a bit prepared for planning. I think I take on board what Councillor Field has just said about employees, but I thought it was really interesting listening to the arguments against redeveloping the swimming pool leisure centre. We heard from Councillor Vinehall, Councillor Byrne and Councillor Bayliss about the fact that you have to see what happens as we come out of lockdown. Well, I think those very arguments are exactly the same ones that you'd use here. You know, we don't know, no one knows what working conditions are going to be like moving forward. No one knows at this precise moment how many people are going to work out of offices, how many people are going to work from home all the time. And I think it's extraordinary. You know, Councillor Vinehall said about bankrupting the council by developing or putting in a new leisure centre, but there's no reference to bankrupting the council for doing this, and we're talking about similar amounts of money. So either it's bankrupting the council or it's not. Similar amounts of money, similar sort of project. One's a leisure centre, one's council offices. I do accept that the council offices are cramped, absolutely, but I'm thinking about the residents of Bexhill and Rother. I don't think the residents of Ticehurst are going to benefit from redeveloped town hall. And I think that you need to look at the wider Rother area. And I feel that given the situation, if times were different, I might have a different view. But I think given the restrictions on finances, given the fact we're eating into reserves, I find it extraordinary that we're not using the same argument, let's sit back and wait and see what happens, that we're using for the leisure centre. I find it very funny that we're using exactly the same argument for the leisure centre that could be used for the town hall, but it's not being used for the town hall because it doesn't suit the narrative. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Kirby-Green. Councillor Mary Barnes. Mrs. Mary Barnes.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm now slightly confused because I don't know whether I'm speaking for the or against the amendment or whether I'm actually back on track again. Because what I wanted to say is really in line with what Councillor Kirby-Green has just said. But of it, on something as huge as this, and it did come to most of us on this side of the chamber as a bit of a bolt from the blue. On planning, when a large development is planned, what happens is everybody gets together and is shown the plans. You know, probably, you know, if we had it explained carefully how this was going to be implemented, how much money it was going to cost, what the certainty was that it was all going to be absolutely within budget, I certainly would have been a lot happier about it. As it is, I know perfectly well from, for example, the development of my own house, which we took on as a barn which needed converting, that you start off with a figure that you think is going to be right, but at the end of the day, you find that you have spent a great deal more. And I can't help feeling that this is something that is going to land the council in debt for very many years. In fact, somebody worked out, I mean, there again, because we're not given, we're not privy to any information when you all are talking about this, but the amounts mentioned is something in the region of about 560,000 a year it's going to cost. And I don't see how you're going to get the money back. 14 flats, and goodness only knows what we needed more than anything were affordable flats. Well, they certainly won't be that. They will be very, you know, high luxury flats. I don't see how you're going to get the money back. Now, if you had only taken the time and trouble to exercise some of the transparency that you're all talking about in the way you run things, we might have actually all got together and looked at what you were proposing. As it is, I must put this very much on the same plane as the leisure centre. For example, when Councillor Vinehall says, why does it have to happen in a pandemic over the leisure centre? Then I would have to say my reply would be, and ditto this one, because I think this is a vanity project and I don't see how it will ever make ends meet. Your fault for not actually explaining.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Before I come to you, Councillor Maynard, on a point of clarification, I think I was just going to do that. We're going to vote first on the amendment and then either the original motion or the original motion. But I think it's too difficult to sort out the speeches. So I think people can address both as we're getting there. But there will be a vote on the amendment and then on the original minute, either amended or not, depending on the first vote. I hope that answered you, Councillor Maynard.
Chairman, Chairman, you're not quite a psychic, but I applaud I applaud your efforts. I think that I just think it's a little bit muddled because clearly we've got some members who are talking about the general principle. I thought that debate would come next, and I thought what was being discussed at the moment was the proposition of the amendment to allow scrutiny to look at this. And I'm sure that every member of the chamber would not have any problem at all in this going to scrutiny, and that's all we should be discussing, surely, and then we should be having the detailed debate secondly. And Councillor Oliver's nodding, so I hope that that's the point of clarification that I want to raise. So we're just simply voting on the proposition of taking this issue to be considered by the scrutiny committee, and we should be having that proper debate later. Well, later, as in a minute after we've done the first vote.
Okay, thank you. Yes, it may mean I have to come back on different orders to people, but that's fine. Councillor Roger Bird is next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My problem is I'm really worried about where this £460,000 has come from. What purports to be really a basic viability study at this point. No developer would ever spend that sort of money on such a study, which makes, unless this figure is a percentage for professional fees on a known figure, which would make me think that this project is a lot further advanced than we are actually led to believe. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bird. Just if I stick to the amendment, I know the next one is Councillor Terry Byrne, who wishes to speak to the amendment. If there are any people for the original minute, I can go back to you if you indicate when I call you that you want to speak about the original. So this is Councillor Terry Byrne speaking to the amendment, please.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I'd like to thank Councillor Maynard. We were in danger of having a mishmash of two separate debates all crammed into one. The idea of taking this to scrutiny is to address the points that were quite reasonably made. Councillor Mary Barnes made the point that and I'm sure lots of other councillors would like to have had longer to look at the proposals as far as they've got and debate them and discuss them, and we can present our reasons for, first of all, thinking that this is truly a revenue neutral project, and secondly, that it is environmentally sound and that it's for the benefit of the staff. But I think that debate will be more reasonably had, not in full council, but in overview and scrutiny. So really, I welcome Councillor Bayliss's amendment to take this back to scrutiny. Maybe we should have done that first time round, and I don't think anyone would object to that, where we can have a more reasoned discussion and probably more input from officers who. The project isn't further down the line than people think, so there's no conspiracy there. We've not done work behind the scenes, and officers will be able to explain their thinking, how far their outline thinking will go to influence the design, and then they'll also be able to explain what the costs or what the proposed estimated costs are of the consultation they want to undertake. So personally, I would just like to keep this debate to let's move it to overview and scrutiny and have the major debate then, where I think it'll be more productive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Paul Cortell.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very much in support of Councillors Bayliss and Byrne and what they've suggested about moving it to scrutiny. I think as a matter of principle, a project of this size should be scrutinised by the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I think that scrutiny is a fundamental principle of our Western democracy, and I therefore very much welcome this amendment.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Maynard wishes to move to a vote on the amendment. I think we'd got to that point anyway, and I know Councillor Dixon reserved the right to speak on the amendment.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'd just like to sum up, really. I mean, with hindsight, and it's always a wonderful thing, the original report does not contain enough detail, and I think we'll accept that, and that is a learning that we'll take forward from this. You know, there's a very good visual presentation that is available, and I'm sure will be shown to scrutiny if we take it to scrutiny, and that will explain a lot more. There is absolutely no way anyone is trying to hide anything here. This is a good project, and I'm sure once it's all been explained to all members, they will support. And so, therefore, Chairman, I recommend we support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. So, members, we're going to move to a vote on the amendment put forward by Councillor Bayliss and seconded by Councillor Dixon. And when I find them, I had it here earlier, which was a new recommendation 3 that said that the head of service acquisition, transformation and regeneration consult with the overview and scrutiny committee prior to producing the services required to complete the detailed designs. So we're voting for or against that amendment. Over to you, please, Lisa.
Thank you, Chairman. John Barnes.
For.
Mary Barnes.
For.
Bayliss.
For.
Bird.
For.
Brewerton.
For.
Brown.
For.
Byrne.
For.
Carroll.
For.
Clark.
For.
Coleman.
For.
Mrs. Cook.
For.
Portell.
For.
Curtis.
For.
Dixon.
For.
Drayson.
For.
Mrs. Earl Williams.
For.
Errington.
For.
Field.
For.
Ganley.
For.
Gray.
For.
Palmer.
For.
Giawan.
For.
Johnson.
For.
Mrs. Kirby Green.
For.
Langlands.
For.
Madeley.
For.
Maynard.
For.
Mia.
For.
Mooney.
For.
Norton.
For.
Oliver.
For.
Osborne.
For.
Stevens.
For.
Thomas.
For.
Councillor Tempe, did she leave the room?
No, I'm
Councillor
here.
Tempe?
I'm here.
Sorry, Councillor.
That's okay. For.
Thank you, Chairman. That's carried unanimous.
Thank you, Lisa. Are there any members who wish to make comment, debate the original motion as amended now?
As I told you, Chairman, I wish to say a few words.
Yes, thank you. Councillor John Barnes.
Chairman, I'm happy with the progress we've made that this is going to go to scrutiny, but I wanted to explain why I think this is still the wrong time and why I think actually it is the wrong project. I will probably make fuller arguments if and when this passes this council, as I expect it will do. But I think I need to explain why I'm going to vote against it tonight. And that is for two reasons. First of all, I think it postpones a very much needed project, which I'm sure both Councillor Bayliss and I will find ourselves in agreement on. It seems to me that Councillor Maynard and I have been arguing for some little time now that behind the town hall there is a site and car parks over which we could put prefabricated housing units, which would be helpful to the homeless and to those in need of affordable housing. I think that could be done without prejudice to the remainder of the site. On the remainder of the site, I think we are being wholly premature for much the same reasons that Councillor Thomas and Councillor Vinehall made their grounds for opposing the leisure centre. We are looking at an extremely large capital sum at a time when we haven't yet learnt the full lessons of COVID. I personally thought they were wrong on that, but on this, I am absolutely certain they will be right. We have seen a major change in habits of working during the pandemic. We have no idea what the balance of home working and hot desk working is going to be in the coming years. And yet you are asking us to begin to design a set of offices, much needed, I accept that, but we do not know the type of office, the amount of office that is actually going to be required post-COVID, and we are rushing to design this prior to really learning the lessons. We've assumed too that it needs to be on the present site. Clearly the town hall bit, the council chamber, the civic bit, clearly everybody's agreed must remain and must remain there. But when I looked at the option appraisal, which was not properly scored, I could not see a conclusive argument for thinking that all our offices need be in the centre, particularly at this time when I suspect a lot more home working and Zoom working or Teams working is going to become part of the pattern of life. So overall, it seems to me that we are rushing in to a design, and the cost of this is quite extraordinary. You would probably, if you were a developer, test out your ideas, spending perhaps a six-figure sum. I suspect rather less, but Councillor Bird or Councillor Osborne can correct me on that. But instead, we're about to spend something like £500,000 before we have even taken it to planning to test that market. We're not really looking at viability. We're obviously looking at a very much more detailed design. I'm happy if it passes to crawl all over that at scrutiny, but given the present state of the pandemic, given what we know now, I think this is wholly premature. And if you thought that the leisure centre was premature, then you really ought in all consistency to vote against this now.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Members, I do have 4 more members who wish to speak on this. I'm conscious of the time, and we still have the very urgent or the very important matter of the budget and the council tax to be discussed yet. So unless anyone's thinking of voting or suggesting that we extend this meeting, we may have to set up another meeting this week to finish the business. I'm just asking behind the scenes, they're looking for a date for that one, unless I say anyone wishes to suggest we go on past 3 hours, but there's no guarantee, bearing in mind I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 still wishing to speak on this matter. There's no guarantee that even if we go past 3 hours, we will address the other outstanding items. Specifically on that, does anyone have a comment to make? I see Councillor Maynard is moving to continue with the meeting. Is there a seconder for that?
I will second.
And thank you, Councillor Barnes. One moment while I go back to my piece of paper. Right, so we'll put a hold at the moment to those further discussions. I shall come back, and I now want to put to yes, we will have a council break as soon as we've said we're going to go on. We've made a decision on this one, so I'd like to take a vote, please, on Councillor Maynard's proposal that we continue the meeting past 3 hours, as seconded by Councillor Kirby Green. Lisa, please.
Thank you, Chairman. John Barnes.
4.
Mary Barnes.
4.
Bayliss.
4.
Bird.
4.
Brewerton.
4.
Brown.
4.
Byrne.
4.
Carroll.
4.
Clark.
4.
Coleman.
4.
Mrs. Cook.
4.
Courtell.
Against.
Curtis.
4.
Dixon.
Against.
Drayson.
4.
Mrs. Earl Williams.
4.
Errington.
4.
Field.
4.
Ganley.
4.
Gray.
4.
Harmer.
4.
Giawan.
4.
Johnson.
4.
Mrs. Kirby Green.
4.
Langlands.
4.
Madeley.
4.
Maynard.
4.
Mia.
4.
Mooney.
4.
Norton.
4.
Oliver.
4.
Osborne.
4.
Stevens.
4.
Thomas.
Against.
Tempe.
4.
That's carried, Chairman.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm sure you're going to answer
Chair.
this question. I'm sure you're going to answer this question that it's in my gift or something. But can I call for a comfort break now before I refer to Councillor Tony Ganley to continue speaking on this reserved minute?
Again, Chairman, I would suggest you probably want to finish this matter before you actually have a comfort break.
Indeed. Thank you. Councillor Tony Ganley, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. It does rather seem to me to be putting the cart before the horse to commit to spending £460,000 on consultants before obtaining planning permission. That seems rather unwise. One of the main aims of the proposal to arrange the refurbishment, the renaissance of the town hall is to improve energy efficiency. How many kilos of CO2 emissions are currently produced by the town hall? Can anyone tell me? And how much would be saved? How much would be generated by the rebuild? The aim is for the project to be cost neutral. What are the estimates which suggest that this is possible? Before embarking on such a project, surely it would be advisable to learn the lessons from the last year in terms of people working from home. It may well be that some staff will continue to work from home in the future. Finally, instead of refurbishing the town hall, I want to see a leisure centre in Bexhill. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ganley. Councillor Polly Gray, please.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I will try and be brief, but I think the town hall is an important part of the history of Bexhill. It's part of our heritage. It was purpose-built as a town hall in 1895, designed by Henry Ward. I do like Councillor Bayliss's description of this as a renaissance, because in fact it is a rebirth. It's an old Victorian building, as we know. It's had various extensions added over the last 100 years. As Councillor Fielder said, the heating system is antiquated with only 2 control switches, on or off, and it has some limited energy efficiency measures. But I can answer Councillor Ganley's question. The current total annual carbon emissions are a massive 140 tonnes via electricity and 71 tonnes via gas, giving an eye-watering total of 211 tonnes. So we are a very long way from being carbon neutral. And I have to give my thanks to Ben Hook for giving me this up-to-date information. The proposals before us today have a potential to significantly reduce the council's greenhouse gas emissions, not just focusing on carbon neutrality by energy efficiency, but also looking at water efficiency. This is very important as we live in an area of serious water shortages. Urban greening, creating a new green space, can be part of the development's offsetting initiatives. We are ideally placed in the town centre with close proximity to public transport. We have the opportunity to install better cycling facilities for staff, such as parking, showers, changing room, and link the town hall to the National Cycle Route 2 via the seafront and train station. So, in summary, this gives us an exciting and unique opportunity to focus on carbon reduction, energy efficiency, water efficiency, sustainable transport, urban greening, and the creation of new green spaces in line with the aims of the Rother Corporate Plan and the Rother Environment Strategy. We have committed ourselves to achieving carbon zero by 2030, and it's only right that we set an example and put our own house in order first. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gray. Before I come to Councillor Osborne, I do have to admit I wrote a big piece of paper here to remember to invite Councillor Vinehall and Councillor Prujack back in at the end of this, but I did omit to actually ask them about their vote for continuing this meeting. I think the vote in favour of it would have not been swayed by those two, but I offer my apologies to you, councillors, for admitting them, and obviously to them. I wonder if, Lisa, you could try and get a message to them, which includes what we decided and also my apologies.
I can try.
Yes, thank you. That's all we could hope. Councillor Paul Osborne, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be brief. If members are sort of concerned about the use of the town hall in the future post-COVID, it's all on page 8. Staff survey has been carried out. Staff want to come back to the office, but not full time, maybe 2 or 3 days a week. So it's all there. Personally, if this was down to me, I would pull this recommendation and await the scrutiny meeting to go through it, to come up with a recommendation to put to cabinet, that then they can then resolve the item, and then it's done in the correct order to me. So if it was down to me, it's obviously not, but if it was down to me, I'd say pull this item. Let's get the scrutiny by the end of March. I know Malcolm's got to try and find a date somewhere, but you know, if we do that, then we've got a plan going forward. We can recommend it onto cabinet. Cabinet can then vote on it. Job done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Osborne. Councillor Carl Maynard, please.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. I mean, yeah, whilst we all want to see carbon reduction as something that all of the councils up and down the country and all of us as members would want to do, what we don't want to do is have a flagship project for this authority that is in fact nothing more than a folly. I mean, we've got to be really clear about this, and I think that we need to be really clear about this. If it were a choice between a new leisure centre or a new town hall, it should be absolutely clear where that choice would be. And we owe it to the people, the residents of this area that want a new leisure centre, to actually put our priorities properly in order. And I personally think that the comments of Councillor Vinehall and Councillor Byrne can be equally applied to this project, and as they would be towards the leisure centre. And quite frankly, the sort of costs that are involved here could be on a par with that of a leisure centre, or even beyond that. And I find the idea of this being cost neutral to be just frankly ridiculous. And, you know, it's very, very clear that what's been thought up thus far isn't thorough, as Councillor Osborne has alluded. And there are other buildings that this council offers that could be refurbished, I would suggest, at a fraction of the cost, that are actually not too distant from the town hall itself, that are also owned by ourselves. But I also want to emphasise the point that Councillor Barnes had made in terms of new building behind the town hall, that I'm sure we have political consensus to get on with now that would achieve many of the aims that we want to do in terms of low-cost housing and in terms of alleviating some of those problems around the homeless. That is what we put forward in March 2019. And I have to say the Conservatives as a group would be still keen to promote that, just as we're keen to promote the idea of a new leisure centre. But, you know, we can sensibly and pragmatically move forward with this and not move forward with the biggest folly that this council will ever undertake. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Maynard. Councillor Jeanette Stevens, please.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree with what a lot of the councillors have said. I mean, I think this should be put on hold. I mean, it's not that I'm against it. It's just that I think that none of us know what the working position will be after COVID. And I mean, members of my family will never go back into the office. I mean, it's a lot of money to spend. I think it should just be put on hold for a little while. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Councillor Richard Thomas.
Chair, members of the public and other fellow councillors. The first thing that I would like to say here is that I believe in the town hall as much as anybody here. It's a characterful building, an attractive building. It's centrally placed, and I'm all in favour of keeping it. In fact, if there was any proposal to bulldoze it, I would happily lie down in front of the bulldozer to make sure that it survived. But I think some of the arguments we've heard today against the proposition don't really hold water, you know. I think we're seeing on the one hand an element here of false antitheses. So it isn't actually a question of do we do something about the town hall or do we do something about the leisure centre, because we want to do something about the leisure centre, but we don't want to do it now. And I argued that in fact we're making exactly the same decision as virtually every single other council up and down the country. And the one exception that was held against me, North Norfolk, is already bricks and mortar, so it's too late to cancel it. And there are countless examples of other councils taking the correct, cautious decision to wait until the uncertainties are resolved. So here I think it's a false antithesis, but I also think it's a false equivalence, because on the one hand it's being argued we're being cautious about that, but we're not being cautious about the other. And the reason why I say it's a false equivalence is because the disadvantages of making a decision about a leisure centre are very apparent and generally accepted. But on the other hand, the disadvantages of not repurposing space within town halls are also generally accepted. So we see a similar project to repurpose the town hall in Maesting. We see a similar process of repurposing the town hall in Manchester. So from Manchester to Maesting, we see repurposing taking place. And the reason for that is because it makes sense. We have been told by Councillor Barnes, he says that he suspects that home working is coming to be part of the pattern of life. And we just had a very similar a statement made by Councillor Stevens, saying that members of the family are never going to go back to an office. And so it's a reality. And we've tested this against what our staff think. 70% of our staff say that they're thinking in terms of working 1 to 3 days a week. That means a lot of staff don't want to come back, and other members of the staff will be coming back on a part-time basis. So, and the reason why I think we can be confident about this is because home working has proved itself. It's proved itself to be efficient. It's proved itself to be effective. It's proved to be what people want to do. And places like sort of international banking organizations, and I work with members of those organizations in my psychotherapy work, are very clear that they're not going to be using and needing the same amount of office space. And so this is simply a very good example of decision making in a pandemic. In a pandemic, you've got to be flexible, you've got to be open, you've got to be prepared to actually catch a tide, to see which way things are moving and to go with it. And that's what this council has done. It's a council which has been agile in terms of its decision making. And so it's come up with a scheme that actually is in line with a whole set of national and local policies. It's a policy that actually is in line with green objectives and the government's green objectives. It's going to help our staff. And who would want to cause our staff to have to wait years and years? Come to a conclusion, yeah?
Thank you, please.
Yeah. Okay, I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. This isn't aimed at you, Councillor Thomas, at all, but can we bear in mind the length of time and the length we've still got to go to? That's not aimed at you. I can assure you.
Cheers, thank you.
Councillor Andrew Mear, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll try to be brief. So much has been said already, but I think it is important to say that in the case of the Town Hall, this is something which is absolutely central to our activities, to the things that we do for the community, our statutory duties, our discretionary duties. Without a town hall, without the public areas, the debating chambers, the offices, we cannot work efficiently as a modern council. And that contrasts, I think, with the leisure centre, where people can engage in many forms of leisure and exercise. They can play cricket, they can play tennis for next to nothing at Edgerton Park and elsewhere. And we support those activities through community grants and so on. In the case of the Town Hall, we have to do this. We have to have the offices, and we have to provide decent accommodation to our staff. To anybody who's been behind the scenes at the Town Hall and seen the offices, it is quite disgraceful that our staff are expected to work in those conditions in today's circumstances. It's like faulty towers. There are steps going up, there's steps going down, there are fire doors, there are cubby holes. It is completely inaccessible to people of limited mobility. We have got to move on. We can do this, we can make it cost neutral, we can provide living accommodation, flats, 14 flats, and we can let out accommodation to other departments. I strongly support this. This is the time to move forward on this project. It will take a while to bring to completion. Let's go forward. Let's make progress. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Mear. Councillor Christine Bayliss.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I don't know whether I'm sort of winding up the debate as the proposer of the original motion, but I mean, I would just like to say that I've heard all the arguments, and I don't understand. I mean, Councillor Thomas put it much more eloquently than I probably will do, but I don't really understand how you can compare the leisure centre with the Town Hall project. The leisure centre is something that was going to potentially cost us hundreds of thousands of pounds in our revenue budget every year. This has the potential to be revenue neutral or cost neutral over time. Councillor Maynard is just playing politics here. I mean, it's really utter nonsense when he talks about the dichotomy. You've got an opportunity to really study the plans at overview and scrutiny, to go through the figures. I suggest that we all put in the questions that we want to ask, so they can all be addressed at overview and scrutiny, and then we can work forward. Then we can move forward together. Our staff deserve so much better. That we need to move them from working in sort of Dickens type accommodation to working in the 21st century accommodation. And I propose that we move to a vote and that we have that debate at overview and scrutiny. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Bayliss. Yes, as you said, you didn't know if you were winding up. I was definitely going to take that as the winding up. But actually, the leader of the council wishes to speak, and I will allow him to speak before we move to the vote. So, Councillor Doug Oliver, please.
Thank you, Chairman. It's been an interesting comments that have been made here, and I certainly, with hindsight, identify the need to have referred this to scrutiny. Members need to look at this, and they will have that opportunity of doing so. But the whole pandemic has been a wake-up call. It's been a wake-up call. It needs to be reset as to where we're going and look at opportunity. And I don't see this as a folly. I don't compare this with a leisure centre. This is a commercial opportunity that we could establish all that we are seeking, commercial space for other organisations to use those offices, better working conditions for our staff, which is important in line with what their wishes are going forward, and also some housing. So the several boxes, we've got the green agenda that we want to be supporting as well. So we identify costs are identified. Officers were asked to explore the opportunity of using the assets that we have within Rother, and this is an idea. We'll go forward, and I don't compare it to the leisure centre. I don't look at it as a folly. I feel this is an opportunity that we should explore.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. Members, we're now going to go to the vote on this. So it is the reserve matter, which is minute CB 20102, with the amendment that was carried, which was the third recommendation referring to the overview and scrutiny. So we're now voting on the original motion as amended. Lisa, over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. John Barnes.
Against.
Mary Barnes.
Against.
Bayliss.
For.
Bird.
Against.
Brewerton.
For.
Brown.
Against.
Byrne.
For.
Carroll.
Against.
Clark.
Abstain.
Coleman.
For.
Mrs. Cook.
For.
Cortell.
For.
Curtis.
Against.
Dixon.
For.
Drayson.
For.
Mrs. Earl Williams.
Abstain.
Errington.
For.
Field.
For.
Ganley.
Against.
Gray.
For.
Harmer.
For.
Giawan.
For.
Johnson.
Against.
Mrs. Kirby Green.
Against.
Langlands.
For.
Madeley. Madeley. Maynard.
Against.
Mia.
For.
Mooney.
Against.
Norton.
For.
Oliver.
For.
Osborne.
Against.
Stevens.
Against.
Thomas.
For.
Tenpe.
For.
That's carried, Chairman.
Thank you, Lisa. You can invite Councillor Vinehall and Councillor Prochat back in, but they're going to come into a slightly empty room because we're now going to take a 10-minute break. So 21:44. 21:44. We will start again. Thank you and welcome back to this evening's full council meeting, Rother District Council. Now moving on to agenda item 8, Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to move it be noted that there were no urgent decisions taken at the meetings held on the 11th of January or the 8th of February.
Thank you. Seconded.
Councillor Prochat.
Councillor Prochat. Thank you, Councillor Prochat. As it's simply for noting, I don't intend taking a roll call vote on this matter. Can I just remind members who perhaps have come back in to put their microphones on mute? Thank you. Agenda item 9, Budget 21-22, to consider and if thought fit to pass a resolution in the terms set out in the report in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 17.5b. A vote by roll call is to be taken when setting the council's budget. Councillor Oliver, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to move that the Council Procedure Rules 14.4, content and length of speeches, and item 14.5, when a member may speak again, be waived for this discussion of this item.
Thank you. Seconded.
Councillor Project.
Thank you, Councillor Project. I almost dread to say this. Have I got to have a vote on this, Lisa? I suspect the answer is yes.
No, Chairman. I think in the absence of any dissent, then we would just take that as wanted.
Good, yes. Any members wish to object to the waiving of the rules, re-speaking? Please show in the chat now. Thank you. In the absence of any objection, yes, I will take this as confirmation. Again, no need to take a roll call vote. Right, Councillor Oliver. To move the Cabinet Minutes CB 2098 from the meeting held on the 8th of February, together with the resolution set out within the report.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. To move the Cabinet Minutes CB 20/98 from the meeting held on the 8th of February, together with the resolution set out within the report, be approved and adopted.
Thank you. Seconded.
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Prochak. The matter is open for debate, and I have Councillor John Barnes.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I begin by paying tribute to our officers who have done valiant work in this year of COVID. We've already paid tribute to them for the way in which they got government grants out to the people who actually needed them most. And I think their efficiency has been unbounded. I have every sympathy with them trying to formulate a budget in the current situation of great uncertainty. It's probably one of the most considerable periods of uncertainty I think I've ever known in local government. But of course, that really means one has to be prudent. We've heard quite a lot of that tonight. And the more I've gone on listening to the budget discussions, the more uneasy I have become. In particular, I think quite unrealistic assumptions are being made in this budget about the likely expenditure on the homeless. We are
Councillor Barnes, as if by magic, you've been muted.
Somebody's muted me.
I'm very sorry, Chairman. It was me by mistake.
At which point did you lose me, Chairman?
You were beginning to talk about the effect on the homeless.
I was saying that the provision for the homeless in this budget seems to me, I'm afraid, absurdly optimistic. We're coming towards the end of COVID. We know that restrictions on landlords are likely to come to an end. We know about many of the other housing problems in this area of the world. And with the best will in the world, I cannot think that the figure we've put in there is anything other than flying on a wing and a prayer. We have made the whole budget conditional on delivering savings and delivering income. I suspect that we will recover our income in some measure, And we are going to be greatly helped, it seems to me, by the government, who are in fact not only allowing us to spread some of the likely problems with tax revenues over the next 3 years, but they are actually providing us with substantial financial help for the likely effects of a reeling economy. It will still be a reeling economy on our tax take, and indeed, I suspect, on some of our spend. It really does worry me, though, that we are making so little strides towards the reorganisation of the council, the moves to agile working. Everything that we know is going to be needed if we are going to get our costs down. It's not, I think, for want of trying. I think COVID has actually, to some extent, got in the way of people like Malcolm, who I know want to do this. But it does mean that our savings for this year are not likely to be as great, I think, again, as the sum put in the budget. And I see veiled warnings throughout the minute of this item, which I think we are bound to take cognizance of. So we're told, in fact, the 5-year financial forecast included a number of assumptions, the main one being the future delivery of recurring savings of 632,000 in the coming year to about 2.2 million from 24-25. I really think we now need to see some detail on that. Again, we're told, assuming the council was able to deliver the identified savings, the forecast showed that over the 5 years, nearly 7.4 million of the reserves will be used, part of which goes on the capital programme, but an awful lot is going on, again, a wing and a prayer, that we are somehow going to get it right by the mid-20s. And the financial forecasts, we're told, I quote them in it again, showed reserves will be under considerable pressure and may fall below acceptable levels over the next 5 years. This size increased the council's vulnerability. I am really concerned that we are heading towards an unbalanced budget this year because we have not been able to spell out just how we're going to deliver the savings that are necessary to actually balance it. I do not want to get into the position that Eastbourne has got into and other councils up and down the country. I think we need a very much more realistic plan before I could actually vote for this budget. I have no other recourse really than to vote against it. I'm not against having council tax put up, but I have to say it's the other side of the equation I don't think has been realistically estimated.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Any other members wish to speak on this item? You obviously all knew something that I didn't at 9:10. Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Chairman. As no one else wishes to speak, I'll respond to Councillor Barnes. I mean, he's right. None of us have got a crystal ball, and that's what you need this year. I'm afraid to set a budget. We just don't know what's happening. And indeed, only today have we actually received the roadmap of when things are going to start, hopefully to change and get better. So officers have simply had to go with their best estimates. And when they were writing this budget, of course, we were in lockdown and no idea of when we were coming out. So Councillor Barnes could well be right, but of course he could well be wrong, and we don't know. So all I can say is this is the best estimate that we can have on a budget this year. And if the Prime Minister is correct and we start to rebound very quickly, we could actually do a lot better in places like Canberra for car parking and such like, where the tourist industry starts taking over again this year. And a lot of people will, of course, be holidaying in our area. So we go with optimism. We have to go with optimism because there is no other alternative. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. In that case, we will move to the vote on this matter. So it's moving Cabinet Minute CB 2098. And a vote by roll call has to be taken for the substantive motion. And therefore, Lisa, over to you again.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So this is also obviously for the formal council tax resolution at Appendix 8 in the report.
Yes,
just to clarify that. Right, Councillor John Barnes.
Against.
Mary Barnes.
Against.
Bayliss.
For.
Bird.
Against.
Brewerton.
For.
Brown.
Against.
Byrne.
For.
Carroll.
Against.
Clark.
For.
Coleman.
For.
Mrs. Cook.
For.
Cortell.
For.
Curtis.
Against.
Dixon.
For.
Drayson.
For.
Mrs. L. Williams. Mrs. L. Williams. Councillor Errington.
For.
Field.
For.
Ganley.
Against.
Gray.
For.
Harmer.
For.
Giawan.
For.
Johnson.
Against.
Mrs. Kirby Green.
Against.
Langlands.
For.
Madeley.
For.
Maynard.
Against.
Mia.
For.
Mooney.
Against.
Norton.
For.
Oliver.
For.
Osborne.
Against.
Proshak.
For.
Stevens.
Against.
Thomas.
For.
Tempe.
For.
Vinehall.
For.
That's carried, Chairman.
Thank you, Lisa. That vote's been carried. The Leader of the Council wishes to address members. Councillor.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm sorry I got a little bit late there. I just really wanted to take this opportunity of acknowledging the work that has been undertaken by Robin Venard and Tony Baden, supported by Councillor Kevin Dixon, who have been putting in a significant amount of time in order to identify where we are. I don't think any council anywhere could actually look at these figures and present them in any different way, because the uncertainty is significant. What we are doing is looking at a financial stability program, identifying all areas where we can adjust our income upwards, our expenditure downwards. We're looking at all these, but there's no plans to bring in any reduction in services or job losses. So it's a difficult task that we need to go forward with, and I'm very pleased that we can take it forward now with the support this evening from members. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. Members, moving on to agenda item 10, to receive the report of the Licensing and General Purposes Committee on matters for determination by full council at its meeting held on the 18th of January 2021. Councillor Mear, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I move that the report of the Licensing and General Purposes Committee held on the 18th of January 2021 be approved and adopted. And I thank the officers for their work in preparing the report and for councillors for their help too. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Seconded? Oh, I see Councillor Sam Coleman. Thank you, Councillor Coleman. I will now call over the report, which is the minutes from the 18th of January 2021 of the Licensing and General Purposes Committee, LGP 20/18 licensing policy. Thank you. As the minute has not been reserved for discussion. It's already been moved and seconded. I shall now put the motion to the vote. Before I do so, I'd like to actually thank Councillor Mear, Councillor Richard Parker Harding and his team for incorporating the agreed changes to the wording, which didn't change the meaning or the intention of the policy. But thank you for that. So to the vote on this one, please, Lisa.
Thank you, Chairman. John Barnes.
4.
Mary Barnes.
4.
Bayliss.
4.
Bird.
4.
Brewerton.
4.
Brown.
4.
Byrne.
4.
Carroll.
4.
Clark.
4.
Coleman.
4.
Mrs. Cook.
4.
Coulter.
4.
Curtis.
4.
Dixon.
4.
Drayson.
4.
Mrs. Earl Williams. Mrs. Earl Williams. Errington.
4.
Field.
4.
Ganley.
4.
Gray.
4.
Harmer.
4.
Hart. Giawan.
4.
Johnson.
4.
Mrs. Kirby Green.
4.
Langlands.
4.
Madeley.
4.
Maynard.
4.
Mia.
4.
Mooney.
4.
Norton.
4.
Oliver.
4.
Osborne.
4.
Proshak.
4.
Stevens.
4.
Thomas.
4.
Tempe.
4.
Vinehall.
4.
That's carried, Chairman.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, members. Moving on to agenda item 12, role of chair, nominations for chairman and vice chairman. As this agenda item does concern the role of chairman of the council, I will hand over to the vice chair, Councillor Cathy Harmer, to conduct this part of the meeting. Councillor Harmer.
Thank you, Chair. As Vice Chair, I would like to ask if there are any nominations for the Chairman of the Council 21-22, please. Could you put your nomination in the chat, please, if you've got one? Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. I really feel it's been a very difficult year for our current chair to have been taken on this particular role. He hasn't had the opportunity of some of the additional duties that he would have undertaken. I think Brian has done an exceptionally good job. I think under a very, very difficult set of circumstances, he has discharged his duties, and I have no hesitation in trying into nominating him for a second term in order that hopefully he can enjoy some of the additional features of being a chairman of Rother District Council. And I have no hesitation but to nominate him for this position. Thank you.
Cathy, you're muted. Sorry, thanks. I've got a second from Councillor Langlands, but I've got a few people who want to speak, so I'm not quite sure which way around to do this. Do I take the second?
The nomination's been seconded. You're now calling if there's any other nominations.
Yeah. Are there any other nominations? No other
Chairman,
nomination?
Madam Chairman, I think that in order to sorry, it's I've got the computer, you keep freezing, sorry. Just to say that from our side of the chamber, we'd certainly like to support Councillor Drayson for a second year. These are unprecedented times, and as chairman and vice and his vice chairman, I'm sure that every member of this council will want to see that civic responsibility given to Councillor Drayson and yourself for another year, because these are unprecedented times. We're now doing something I don't think we've ever done before, where we have a second term immediately afterwards, but I think it's entirely the right thing to do. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Can we do it by acclamation?
Thank you, Councillor Maynard. I think we've got Councillor Byrne to speak and Councillor Paul Osborne, is it? And then Councillor Drayson to speak.
Thank you, Vice Chair. As a previous chairman, I must say I feel for Brian because as well as having to eat lots of stale sandwiches and canapes, it's very, very interesting for a chairman to meet the people from the other authorities in the area and people like the Lord Lieutenant and the civic dignitaries. It's also interesting for them to meet Brian. Brian is going to be one of the people who has essentially mastered the art of remote meetings. And I think because we're going to move to hybrid meetings, and I think lots of other authorities are, I think people will really want to call on his expertise, not just Brian's expertise, but I think the way the authority, all of us have managed to handle remote meetings and stop them descending into a sort of Handworth Parish Council situation. So yes, I fully support Brian for another, Councillor Drayson for another year, and I fully support the continuation all the way through, and I think he will do an excellent job. And as I say, when he gets the chance to meet people from other authorities, I think they'll be very interested in to hear how he's managed and how well he's done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Osborne, did you want to speak?
Yes, please, Madam Chairman, if I may, just briefly. That is an excellent idea from Leader of the Council. As a past chairman of council myself and past mayor of Rye, you know, I've felt for a lot of people who are in this position of you know, a dignified position, if you like, you know, and you haven't been able to do anything, and it's just been ultimately a kick in the teeth. You know, you get the year to sort of go out and about, see people, do things, everything else, and it's all on hold. So if there's a chance that he can actually get to be chairman properly, if you like, and go to a Bexhill horse show and vote on the favourite float in a fete, then great. And the Bexhill Choral Society and the rest of it, yeah, it's all good. And you know, he missed out. So I'm fully in favour of it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Osborne. As there are no further nominations, I hereby declare Councillor Brian Drayson the council nomination for Chairman of the Council 21-22, and I wish you the very best of luck, Brian. I hope you get to enjoy a lot more this year.
Thank you, Councillor Harmer, and thank you, colleagues, for your continued support in these weird times that we're living in. In the break, I did mention that on Wednesday, signing the government order for Bexhill was the first time I'd sat in the big chair for real. And, you know, it was a treat. But thank you for that. Now moving on to call for nominations for Vice Chair for the Council for 2021-22. Any nominations, please? Councillor Langlands, are you nominating Councillor Harmer?
Yes, I would like to nominate Councillor Kathy Harmer. Yes, please. I'd certainly like her to continue as Vice Chair. It's been such a steep learning curve for both Kathy and yourself, and I think it will be great to see you continue and get some different experiences, I hope, in the year ahead. So, yes, please, I'd like to nominate Kathy.
Thank you. And Councillor Errington, you're seconding that?
Yes, I am. I'd like to second Kathy's nomination. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more nominations, please? Right, thank you. As there are none, in the absence of further nominations, I declare that Councillor Kathy Harmer is the Council's nomination for Vice Chair of Council for the year 2021 to 2022. Thank you, everyone. That brings us to the end of this evening's business. To those of us new to it, it's a bit of a marathon, but some of you older ones think it's lightweight, that we're finishing this side of midnight. To those watching on YouTube and to members and officers, thank you ever so much for this evening, and please stay safe. The meeting is now closed. Good night, everybody.